The open public meeting law requires that anyone recording this meeting identify themselves, and also that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. Is there anyone else here recording this meeting? Please identify yourself, if not. Okay. The first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the executive session minutes of the May 16th, 2019 meeting and of the minutes from the June 13th, 2019 meeting. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2, request authorization to accept and expend $384,000 from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Seaport Economic Council to fund electrical upgrades at Dry Dock Number 3 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park, and to enter into a grant agreement with Boston Ship Repair LLC to grant said funds to Boston Ship Repair LLC. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polimas. Dry Dock Number 3 is located in the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. It was built in 1915 at a length of 1,200 feet, and it remains one of the largest dry docks on the east coast of the United States. Up until the year 2000, it could service 90% of the vessels worldwide. It is leased to Boston Ship Repair that currently employs approximately 100 workers for roughly 200,000 man-hours per year, and subcontracts approximately another 500,000 man-hours per year. A recent project, the U.S. Navy vessel CA, was in dry dock for 65 days and supported more than 300 decent wage jobs, most as union laborers at $55 an hour. The shipyard produces $30 to $40 million in wages annually. The dry dock, however, is utilized only about 50% of the year. The biggest limiting factor is the shipyard's existing electrical infrastructure, which is insufficient to service newer classes of vessels. The Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park Master Plan that was recently approved by the board, its economic analysis of port industries points to growth opportunities in ship repair. The plan highlights worthwhile infrastructure investments as part of our new business plan in the park. The plan identifies the upgrade of the dry dock's electrical service as a vital and shovel-ready project. By upgrading the service to the shipyard, they'll have sufficient shore power for modern vessels, eliminating the use of diesel generators to provide power to ships. This will significantly improve the safety, be more energy efficient, reduce carbon emissions, pollution, traffic, and noise. Furthermore, the upgrade will enable Boston Ship Repair to be more competitive in bids for work, increasing the dry dock's utilization rate. It'll also save them $3 million annually in costs by moving over to electric. The project savings will result in more competitive bids, but also an increased utilization, at least by 25%. Last November, we applied to the Seaport Economic Council for a grant to match the federal grant secured by Boston Ship Repair. This past February, the Seaport Economic Council enthusiastically awarded us the grant, and we believe the project should be completed by the end of this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Any questions from the board? Hearing none. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 3, request authorization to allow Mass Iraqi-Afghanistan Fallen Heroes Memorial Fund to lease approximately 3,373 square feet of space at 22 Dry Dock Ave for the principal office and incubator space for veteran entrepreneurs. Maureen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mass Fallen Heroes, which is what we call them, has been a tenant of ours at 12 Channel Street for many years, where they have storage cages. They house the items that are donated to their agency that they sell in order to make money for the veterans, the money that they donate. They have been displaced several times. Their main office is in Quincy right now, and they were just, their lease just ended June 30th, and they can't find an affordable space to be in the Seaport where their memorial is. So they came to us several times over the past probably 12 months. And we do have a space at 22 Dry Dock that is really unmarketable and in pretty rough condition. Needs flooring, windows, electrical, offices, bathrooms, everything. So we have, we talked to them about that. They talked to their partners, and they're willing to invest about $600,000 into the space. So with the condition of it, we thought that a $10 rental fee per square foot would be appropriate after the investment. They're looking for a 5-year term. They have a property that's going to be developed probably about 7 years, where they're going to have a permanent space further into the seaport. So they're only looking for a 5 to 7 year term, 5 to 7 year term, approximately, maybe 8 years. So once they leave, we will have a really great space to relet. So that is our recommendation today to allow this.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Maureen. Item number 4, request authorization to extend the lease with Adcotron EMS, Inc. for the continued use of 45,000 square feet at 12 Channel Street, Suite number 201 and 301 within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park. Maureen.
So Adcotron has been with us for a long time. 1993, they moved from Chinatown, where they originated in 1972. When they came over, they had about 96,000 square feet and about 300 employees. In the early 2000s, they had a substantial downturn in their business, and they went down to 15 employees and gave us back quite a bit of space in the building in 12 Channel Street. They have, in 2005, a couple of the senior managers stepped up and purchased the company to keep it afloat. And they've rebuilt the company over time. They downsized a little bit with space in the later 2000s, but now they're coming back and they're getting new contracts. So they approach us to extend their contract, their lease with us, for the 45,000 square feet that they have. And we have, we agreed on a price of $8.30 a square foot is what their current rate is until their lease expires in a year and a half. And then we come up with a price of $11.50 to start a new lease with them. It is a 5 years with 2 5-year options. The potential for the rent that we will make in the first year is over $500,000. And they've agreed that if they do leave after the first 5-year terms, they're going to pay us a full year's rent for the 6th year. But they have come up with some new contracts and some new clients, so it doesn't look like they're going to go out of business fairly soon. They also employ about 30% of Boston residents as employees.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board? A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Item number 5, request authorization to execute a contract with McKay Construction Services, Inc. for the repairs of the existing garage project located at 12 Dry Dock Ave within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park in an amount not to exceed $4,563,195. Paul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Secretary Polimas. The 12 Dry Dock Ave, 1,766 space parking garage was constructed in 1991 with 2 phases of additions, 2003 and 2007. What we're doing here today, this is the first comprehensive repair and maintenance program since the original construction back in 1991. Significant time has elapsed, therefore numerous repairs, upgrades, and code-compliant modifications are needed. Primarily corrosion of metal components, stairways, drain pipes, plumbing fixtures, metal canopies have succumbed to the saltwater environment. The overall general scope of work, which is inclusive of removal of the front entrance metal stairways and installed with new precast concrete stairs on all 5 levels, which will avoid the corrosion problem. Repairs or replacement to 2 interior metal stairways, replacement of approximately 30,000 linear feet of caulking on the precast concrete floor systems, replacement of all corroded floor drain pipes, drain bodies, and drain leaders from the 1st floor all the way to the 5th floor. We've got miscellaneous concrete repairs, roofing replacement, flashing repairs throughout the garage, fire protection code compliant upgrades. We're going to repaint all the graphics and freshen the look of the garage. And I've got some general miscellaneous electrical repairs as well. The project was competitively bid in accordance with Chapter 149, which included 7 file subtrades, ornamental iron, waterproofing and caulking, roofing, flashing, painting, fire protection, plumbing, and electrical. Approximately 85 interested parties downloaded the project for their review and consideration to participate. File subbids were received on May 9th, 2019, and 2 general bids were received on June 5th, 2019. Waterproofing Company LLC, they were the apparent low bidder. However, they were not certified as a DCAM general bidder. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 149, you have to be DCAM certified as a general bidder if you want to submit a general bid. You have to be DCAM certified as a filed subbidder if you're filing subbids. Waterproofing Company was only certified as a subbid, so we had to reject that bidder. So the following bidder was McKay Construction Services, so therefore they were the apparent old bidder. Actually, it was about a $40,000 difference, so really minimal compared to the overall price. I utilized my house doctor cost estimator to review the bids and stated that the 2 bids received by the BPDA are generally fair, reasonable, and aligned with the current Boston construction market. And funding is through the BPDA's capital budget, and it is available. So if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
So moved, sorry.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 6, request authorization to execute a contract with Coastal Marine Construction LLC for the bulkhead rehabilitation at the East Jetty within the Raymond L. Flynn Marine Park in an amount not to exceed $1,655,524. Paul?
No, thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, located on that site map, you can see all the way to the right there, that's the East Jetty. It's a steel bulkhead system. It's corroded beyond its normal lifespan. We've been seeing this kind of problem throughout the last 8-10 years or so. It was constructed by the federal government back in the 1940s. Salt water exposure has caused severe corrosion in sinkholes, allowing the backfill to wash out directly into the harbor. Charles Engineering was our consultant. We contracted with them to investigate the East Jetty and to design a new independent concrete wall system installed behind the existing bulkhead that will structurally reinforce the East Jetty to replace the corroded steel bulkhead system. So basically what I'll do, we're leaving the old bulkhead system in, and then we're excavating on the land portion of it to create a new wall system, and that'll be right up tight against the existing bulkhead, which will just be abandoned in place. The newly designed and constructed wall system will be approximately 460 feet in length, and once finished, it will protect the land portion and structures at 3 Dolphin Way. Permitting for this project is complete with the Boston Conservation Commission vote of approval on March 20th. The project was publicly bid in accordance with Mass General Law 3039M. An outreach program was done to approximately 70 women and minority-owned business enterprises. We received 5 bids on June 19th. Coastal Marine Construction, who's a woman business enterprise, was determined to be the lowest bidder with an amount of $1,655,524. If you looked at the difference of the bids, we were a little concerned only because there was a pretty decent discrepancy between their bid and the low bidder. So we outreached to them to assure that the difference between Coastal and the other ranges of bids, it was requested that Coastal determined that there was not any error or omissions in their bid. Typically we do that, you know, the law allows for that to assure that there was no omissions or clerical errors on their behalf. They came back and said that they did another investigation. They're saying they're good with their price. So therefore, Mr. Chairman, we're recommending to award Coastal Marine Construction the bulkhead repair project. Funding for the project is included in the fiscal year 2020 budget and is available.
Okay, thank you.
If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer
All right,
any.
any
at this
questions
time.
from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very
Paul.
much.
Item number 7, personnel. Ms. Feeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Madam Secretary. We have some personnel items for your consideration on the EDIC agenda. First, we have 3 appointments with further details listed for your review in the board memo. Their names are Emily Korist, a research assistant, and also Allison Van Twisk, also a research assistant of the research division. Then we have Peter Sun, who's a project engineer in the real estate division. We also have one employment service contractor with details listed in the board review for your review and consideration. His name is Ori Eldridge in Human Resources. We have 16 promotions, market adjustments, and equity adjustments as part of the 2019 performance evaluation period for your consideration with details listed in the board memo for review. We have one status change with details listed in the board memo for your review and consideration, and that is Eve Mimi Turchinitz in the Office of Workforce Development. We have the contractual bargaining agreement between EDIC and the Industrial Union of Marine and Shipbuilding Workers of America for your consideration with details listed in the board memo for your review. Sorry, I'm like out of breath reading this. We have the EDIC employee per diem benefit contribution for your consideration with details listed in the board memo for your review. We have 3 travel items for your consideration with details listed in the board memo. Their names are Victoria Abelina, who's the Assistant Deputy Director of Neighborhood Planning, Goja Tomasuska, Senior Program Manager in OWD, and Marcus Mello, Urban Designer. And finally, we have 4 departures with details listed in the board memo. Their names are Demula Abu, who is an IT support technician, Jovrose Bordeaux, who is a legal assistant, David Damiani, who is a lead financial coach, and finally, Kelly McGee, research manager. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion to accept the personnel report?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. We need a motion to adjourn the EDIC meeting.
I move we adjourn the EDIC meeting.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned. I'm going to read the opening statement for the BPDA meeting. The open public meeting law requires that anyone recording this meeting please identify themselves, and that I notify the public that this meeting is being recorded. Please be aware that an audio and visual recording of this meeting is being made and broadcast by Boston City TV, which is a part of the City of Boston Office of Cable Communications. If there is anyone in the audience who is also recording this, would you please identify yourself? Okay. The first item on the agenda is request authorization for the approval of the minutes of June 13th, 2019 meeting. Motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. I'm going to read the next 2 and have one vote. Item number 2, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on August 15, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 125, Parcel 12, Back Bay, Boston, Massachusetts, and to consider the Parcel 12 project as a development impact project. Item number 3, request authorization to schedule a public hearing on August 15, 2019 at 5:40 p.m. or at a date and time to be determined by the director to consider the 6th amendment to the development plan for Planned Development Area Number 46, Brighton Landing, Guest Street, located in Brighton. A motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item number 4, Board of Appeal. Jeff, are there any changes to the package?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, Director Golden. 78 petitions have been prepared for transmittal to the Board of Appeal. This will cover the 2 remaining ZBA hearings in July and the first one in August. I'd be happy to answer any questions. There haven't been any additions or changes to the package since you've received them.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Item number 5, request authorization for an extension to the South Boston Interim Planning Overlay District to complete the planning and zoning process until October 31st, 2019. Jeff?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. As you may recall, back in 2017, this board authorized the director to petition the Zoning Commission to establish the South Boston Interim Planning Overlay District, or IPOD for short. That was established for a period of 1 year to do some significant changes to the South Boston Neighborhood District zoning. It excluded the areas around the Plan.Ave and Andrews Square. We had subsequently asked for an extension in 2018 to this July 17th, actually, is when the iPod is about to expire. Planning staff has been in conversations
with other city agencies and South Boston elected officials, and we need just a few more months to finalize some of the zoning modifications that we've been working on. This will allow us to go through the public process and vet it through the community. We wouldn't want to come to this board without having that process done. And we are confident that even though the iPods are usually extended for a year, we're very confident that we'll be able to get this done in a short amount of time and bring it back to this board in September.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6. Request authorization to adopt a plan, Dudley Square Public Process Overview Guidelines for the Future Development. Lillian?
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Secretary Palamas, and members of the board. My name's Lillian Mensa. I'm a planner at the BPDA in the Department of Downtown and Neighborhood Planning. I'm here today with Senior Planner Muggsy Undemir. So we're here to request the vote to adopt the Plan Dudley Square Public Process Overview and Guidelines for Future Development document as the plan document that summarizes the Plan Dudley Square process and will guide the BPDA and the community on future development and public realm improvements within the Dudley Square area. This request is solely for the Plan Dudley Square document. It's not for any RFPs currently being discussed within the community. The process was facilitated by the BPDA team in close collaboration with our colleagues across city and state departments, with special emphasis on the Department of Neighborhood Development, Office of Economic Development, Boston Transportation Department, and the Office of Neighborhood Services. Additionally, the process would not have been possible without the participation and engagement of the Roxbury community and the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee. Mayor Walsh launched the Plan Dudley Square process in February of 2016. The goals of Plan Dudley Square are summarized here. First, it's to revisit the original goals of the 2004 Roxbury Strategic Master Plan. It's to reassess neighborhood needs and changes in the real estate market, and to incorporate these community goals into the RFPs for publicly owned vacant land in Dudley Square. This is the map of the Plan Dudley Square study area. The parcels in light blue are already designated parcels that you're familiar with, such as Bartlett and P3. The purple color shows parcels owned by D&D that were RFP'd through this process in July 2018. The teams for parcel development were subsequently chosen through a PRC, Project Review Committee, public process. And then the dark blue are BPDA and state-owned parcels that RFPs are currently being drafted and under review. This is the timeline of the community engagement process. Early workshops focused on visioning and information sharing. They covered topics of transportation, urban design, economic development, housing, and climate resilience to shape the themes included in the RFP. The document outlines the original 2004 Roxbury Strategic Master Plan goals and provides an overview on which goals still resonated with the community today. Later workshops focused in detail on specific development guideline language used in RFPs, giving community members a chance to weigh in on the guidelines and evaluation criteria. There were multiple RFPs, drafts, and comment periods until the 4 RFPs that were released in July of 2018. This is a series of photos from some of the different types of workshops we had. We hosted walking tours, open houses, small group activities, as well as presentations from various city staff. Overall, the document we're seeking approval to adopt describes the 2-year community engagement process that resulted in the release of the 4 RFPs, and that was the release of 40 to 50 Warren Street, 135 Dudley Street, 75 to 81 Dudley Street, 2147 Washington Street. It will also inform the release of future RFPs for publicly owned vacant land at Dudley Square. Specifically, the ones we're working on now are Blair Lot, Parcel 8 in the non-factory, Crescent Parcel, and Roxbury Street A and B. In summary, the document covers planning context, which includes a history and demographic info, the community planning process, and framework and guidelines for future development. Within the framework section in the document are a set of guidelines and principles that resulted from the process. These are present within all the RFPs and have been released and will be released moving forward. These guidelines are development without displacement, diversity and inclusion, housing and affordability, good job standards, active public realm, green building standards, and the development guidelines for each parcel. The process is still ongoing as we have 4 more publicly owned parcels to undergo RFP review. Currently, we're working with the community on finalizing RFP language for Parcel 8, non-factory, and the Blair lot. And our next meeting is going to be July 22nd. We anticipate having further discussion around Crescent Parcel and Roxbury A and B towards the end of 2019, early 2020. We'll be back in front of you this fall with requests to release the RFPs for the BPDA and state-owned parcels. In summary, this document outlines the principles, themes, and guidelines for the development of publicly owned parcels in Dudley Square and documents the public process. We ask you today to vote to approve the plan document, which will guide future development and improvements within the Dudley Square study area through the release for requests for proposals. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I have one question. In the introduction to the plan, in the context that you offer, talks about how in the past public policy has really harmed this neighborhood. And I'm wondering if anyone can speak to how this process is fundamentally different and will result in public policy that actually helps the neighborhood instead of harming the neighborhood. It's kind of a big picture question.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things beyond both the engagement process we held and the policy within the RFPs. The engagement process, we were initially building off the work of the 2004 plan, but as seen in the timeline, we had an extensive process throughout. There were 21 workshops before the RFPs went out, and there's still, even once the RFPs are released, there's then the project review committee process, and then the whole Article 80 process still needs to be completed with community input. So I think the amount of community input is one change, and then some of the new things included within the RFPs, such as the diversity, inclusion, and development without displacement, which is now city policy for any city-owned public parcels to be included within RFPs. I think that's a big difference as well.
One of the issues that isn't addressed in the plan is safety and security in the square. Can you talk a little bit about that? Do you all see that as a separate planning issue for some other city departments, or how is that going to factor into the future development?
Hi, I'm Muggsy, everyone. So safety is obviously a very important issue that's been affecting all of the city, not just Dudley Square, but of course there is that as well in Dudley Square and the surrounding area. And I think one of the ways in which that we're addressing this throughout this process and other planning initiatives is by working with the intergovernmental working group. So we've been working with other departments, and we have a working group specifically for Dudley Square. And in that working group, we're really talking about how public realm improvements, how improvements to the ground floor of buildings and new developments can really work to actually address safety throughout activating spaces, and also just having more people using space. So that is one way that design and architecture and urban design can play a role in that, but we are actively working with other city agencies to make sure that we're addressing it in any way that we can. So while we can't codify that into a zoning per se, we can think of ways in which that does play out in the urban realm as well.
Great, thank you.
I have a question. Can you just go a little bit more in detail into the kind of development without displacement section, and kind of just provide an overview on how we think this plan is going to help mitigate some of that risk, and then what does the risk look like in this neighborhood in the first place, and then what is the plan going to do to kind of address that?
Yeah, Yeah, so the development without displacement language specifically is required within the RFPs. So that requires whoever is offering a proposal to submit plans for how they're going to mitigate displacement, how it's gonna, their proposal will help current residents to stay in their communities, how they can continue to afford housing there, and overall find pathways to economic opportunity. So while we may have not, I think that was also an overarching theme throughout the whole process, and translated directly within that language that is required in the RFPs. It's also very closely tied to the diversity and inclusion language, which requires the developers to establish a plan of both outreach and then once they're building the project development design financing, how it's going to include people of color, women, and NWBEs to participate in the process.
Yeah, but maybe a little bit more in detail on kind of like the affordability levels and a little bit more of like the existing displacement risk of this area. Just trying to get a background and maybe a little bit more granular.
Oh, okay. Oh, I guess I was just going to say that, you know, displacement is a huge issue in every city. I mean, it's not special to us, but it is definitely very prevalent in our neighborhoods as well. And I think one of the ways in which we're working to address displacement is through the affordability. So making sure that there are different income levels that are able to have access to this new housing that is being developed. And all of the parcels are predominantly housing parcels. So there is a large creation of new housing coming in. And as, you know, generally, the more access to housing that we have, the more likely it is that housing that exists, their prices do not go up. But that's just one of the ways, and I know that's not the most amazing answer. It is a difficult question, and I think we all have a lot of work to do in figuring out how to approach it. But this is definitely a good step, and it's great that the city's adopting the policy for all publicly owned parcels that do get RFP'd.
I'm Devin Quirk, Director of Real Estate. Just wanted to add one additional point in addition to what Muggsy and Lillian said. We did conduct a displacement risk analysis. We looked at all the households within Dudley Square and categorized them in levels of risk for displacement. We found that 50% of the households in the immediate Dudley and Roxbury area were households that are living in existing affordable housing that's income restricted and protected for the market, so therefore relatively safe from displacement, which is, I think, a good story about overall investment in housing affordability in our city and generations of work on that topic. But that leaves 50% of the households that are not. And so, in case it wasn't clear, 2/3 of all the housing units built on public parcels through the Planned Dudley process will be income restricted affordable housing that will protect people from displacement for future generations in perpetuity. So that's a major goal of the plan.
And do we see that goal kind of being met strictly through what the BPDA can kind of control versus like what, you know, D&D can help with? I'm just trying to get a sense of that. Like,
that's a great question. Yeah. So I think important difference between Plan Dudley and other planning efforts that have been done by this agency is that Plan Dudley is specifically for public property and will result in RFPs for public property. So we have direct control of what will be built there. And so we can achieve that 2/3 of all housing units being income restricted affordable housing because we control the property ownership. It does not address privately owned property in Dudley Square and in Roxbury. There's certainly, we're paying close attention to that, but that's the affordability goals are specific to public property.
Good.
Could you elaborate on what your next steps are going to be with this plan?
So we have an upcoming workshop on July 22nd, and we're continuing to look at Parcel 8 and the non-factory and then the Blair lot. So we've been out a few times before at previous workshops looking specifically at those parcels. We'll have drafts of the RFPs, which will also include comments that we've received on the drafts so far from community members, and incorporating the changes that people have suggested. So that's the most immediate step.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 7, request authorization to enter into a contract with Mass Design Group Limited for the consultant services in connection with the plan, Mattapan Land Use, Urban Design, Market Analysis, and Transportation Study, in an amount not to exceed $355,000. Muggsy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Secretary Polimis, and members of the board. My name is Muggsy, and I am a senior planner for the BPDA in the Department of Downtown and Neighborhood Planning. I'm here today with Jonathan Evans, who's the project manager with Mass Design Group. We were here last in April to request authorization to advertise and issue a request for proposals in support of the Plan Mattapan initiative. And I'm here today to request authorization for the director to enter into a contract for consultant services to assist in the preparation of Plan Mattapan, which is item 7 on your agenda. So as I mentioned back in April, the Plan Mattapan initiative will build upon Imagine Boston 2030 and create a distinct neighborhood plan for Mattapan. It will also incorporate and build upon past planning initiatives such as the Mattapan Economic Development Initiative and the Fairmont Indigo Planning Initiative. As a recap, the plan will consider the extent of the Mattapan neighborhood as you see in front of you. The proposed study area is 02126 zip code, though areas adjacent to the zip code will also be considered. The study area line is also permeable, and it is not, it's not a hard line, so whenever considerations are made, they will be consideration holistically. So there are 2 primary deliverables to the overall plan initiative. The first is a Mattapan neighborhood plan, including design guidelines that address open space and resilience, multimodal transportation, housing and land use, jobs and businesses, neighborhood character and identity, and arts and culture. The second is a comprehensive implementation plan of actionable items that we are identifying throughout the process. The BPDA issued the RFP on April 29th, 2019, and received 6 proposals on June 7th. All submitted proposals were received by the deadline, were responsive and responsible, met the quality requirements, and satisfied minimum threshold criteria. Proposals were evaluated based on 6 comparative evaluation criteria, including consultant team, approach to process and management, content, allocation of resources and schedule, respondent interview, and diversity and inclusion. The last criteria was issued as an addendum in order to ensure that each team responded to the community's requests for consultant teams to represent and have experience working alongside racially, economically, and culturally diverse communities. In issuing this addendum, most teams brought forth sub-consultants that as an agency we had not seen before, and also that we believe is integral to this planning process. The selected consultant team will support the BPDA in the development of urban design guidelines, placemaking and place-maintaining initiatives, and zoning and land use analysis. The BPDA will work with the community and the consultant team to identify nodes, corridors, and sub-areas for which analysis will be conducted and recommendations will be made. All options will be used for discussion with the community and workshops, contributing to an iterative process between the BPDA, city, the consultant team, and the community. The land use and urban design scenarios will be shaped in part by high-level economic feasibility analysis. Tasks associated with the commercial and residential market analysis sub-consultant will include studying and analyzing regional and local housing and commercial market conditions, existing commercial and potential for new uses, support in the development of a small business and housing stabilization plan, and identifying potential financing strategies for priority projects and improvements. The selected consultant team will also support the BPDA in the analysis of Mattapan's multimodal transportation network and focus efforts on locations experiencing transportation challenges today and the future. Additionally, a portion of the multimodal transportation scope will also be reserved for conceptual design services and quick build projects to be implemented during the study. We are happy to recommend Mass Design Group for the Plan Mattapan Land Use, Urban Design, Market Analysis, and Transportation Study. The selection team feels strongly that Mass Design Group, along with their sub-consultants, RKG, Tool Design, Grayscale, and Supernormal, bring substantial experience and expertise as well as diverse perspectives to the Plan Mattapan team. Mass Design Group brings to Plan Mattapan a diverse team with expertise in land use and urban design, community engagement, housing and small business stabilization, and multimodal transportation. Mass Design Group performed favorably in all stated evaluation criteria and ultimately scored as the most highly advantageous proposal by the selection committee. Additionally, Mass Design is a nonprofit firm that brings a welcome perspective to the team, rooted in architecture and urban design for equity and social justice, and a commitment to fostering meaningful engagement and participatory processes in order to ensure an equitable and inclusive process. They have experience working on various projects and plans, including the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama, the Shaker Square Public Realm Improvement Project in Cleveland, Ohio, and will be part of the team working on the Franklin Park Master Plan. The plan initiative is organized in the following way, with the Mattapan community working with the BPDA and the city to guide this process, myself as project manager managing the consultant team, and Mass Design Group as the project lead. The BPDA will be the face of this plan initiative, as we have built and continue to build relationships with the Mattapan community, and the consultant team will work closely with us to ensure that Mattapan residents and their voices are brought to the forefront of this initiative. This concludes my presentation, and so myself and Jonathan are here for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
I have one question. There are many Creole-speaking residents in Mattapan. How is your planning process going to cross language barriers?
So what we've done so far is that we provide interpretation services at all of our workshops. We have since the beginning, but we have also hosted a strictly Haitian Creole workshop that was all in Haitian Creole. There was interpretation for English speakers, actually. So it was all the materials were printed in Haitian Creole, and we want to continue to do that. We also want to address the Spanish-speaking community that is also in Mattapan, so we're hoping to host a similar one. Another way that we're going to do it is also actually go to some of the churches where a lot of these communities meet, because sometimes asking people to come out to meetings is not always the best way to reach people, so that is just another opportunity that we hope to implement throughout.
Great, thank you.
Okay, there are no further questions, and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank
you.
you very much. Item number 8, request authorization to enter into a design consultant services contract with ASK plus Unknown Studio Team for the Central Artery Tunnel Project Parcel 2 Park Project in an amount not to exceed $100,000. Kendon.
That's right. Good pronunciation.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Secretary Palhemus, and Director Golden. I'm here today to talk a little bit about Parcel 2, which is located on the Greenway. My name's Kenan Ryan. I'm a senior planner in downtown and neighborhood planning. So we've actually been here twice before to the board to authorize this. First, to authorize into a memorandum of understanding with MassDOT and the Greenway Conservancy, and second for the advertisement of this RFP. So Parcel 2 is located at the very top of the Greenway, which was established through the Central Artery Tunnel Project in the early 90s. So it's located right up here. It's in the Bullfinch Triangle area and borders the north end. It will be the northern terminus to the Greenway, and it is one of the last remaining public park parcels that it does not have a ramp on it. And so we're excited to enter into contract for design services for this project. Actually, before I go on, it's approximately 5,000 square feet. It's bordered by North Washington Street, Anthony Rip, Valenti Way, and Beverly Street. It was formerly used as laydown service space for the construction of the Beverly. And we're looking at this point to use some of the funding that we collected through the Hub on Causeway project, the Beverly, and the 88 North Washington Street project, which is pending, to fund $100,000 towards a design contract, and then eventually $500,000 towards the ultimate construction of this park. So as I mentioned, we entered into an MOA with the Greenway Conservancy, who will ultimately be the managers of the parcel. They will also manage the construction of this, and MassDOT, who owns the parcel. That agreement was reached on April 26, 2019. And we're looking to enter into design services with the ultimate idea of building and constructing this park within 2020. We would like to begin construction within the 2020 window, and we're aiming to end by the end of the year, or 2021 at the latest. So we released the RFP for this project on May 8th, 2019. We received 8 proposals. The proposals were evaluated by 3 members, 1 member of the BPDA, myself, a member of the MassDOT team, and 1 member of the Greenway Conservancy. Of those, we found Ask Plus and Unknown Studios' proposal to be the most advantageous and responsible proposal. They were evaluated based on 5 criteria: the respondent team, the approach to project management, the content of the proposal itself, the allocation of resources and schedule, and the respondent interview. We found them to be the most advantageous, and they met all of the quality requirements and satisfied the minimum threshold criteria. What stood out to us in particular was the project management qualifications, the appropriately scaled team in terms of the services that we were asking to deliver, the complete plan of services, the understanding of the budgetary constraints and difficulties working on top of an active highway. Unique project team composition, which, as I mentioned, while we are contracting with ASK Plus, they will act as the local project manager and be involved during the entire design process, but Unknown Studio will act as kind of the design landscape architect through the schematic design process. They also demonstrated a strong understanding of site opportunities and challenges associated with the site, and really promised an engaging and imaginative project design that could result in a unique urban park that complements the Greenway's existing park network. We recommend today that the director be authorized to enter into a contract for consultant services with ASK Plus DBA as Ask Design Build for the Central Artery Tunnel Parcel 2 Park Design. I need to come up with a shorter name. In the amount of $100,000 for up to 24 months. Thank you. And please let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 9, request authorization to execute an amendment to the contract with Kettleson and Associates, Inc. for the Alston-Brighton Mobility Study to increase the contract amount by $91,300 due to the additional necessary services and to extend the term of the contract for 3 months. Tad.
Good afternoon, Director Golden, Chair Burke, Vice Chair Rojas, Secretary Polimus, and members of the board. Staff is asking the board to authorize the director to further amend the AB Mobility contract to increase the amount by $91,300 and extend the term of the contract by 3 months. By way of review, last fall, the BPDA board authorized the director to enter into a contract with Kettleson for the AB Mobility study, and shortly thereafter, we executed a contract with Kettleson in the amount of $528,000. The purpose of the AB Mobility study, in brief, is to study and recommend actionable improvements to help ameliorate bottlenecks and improve safety for all modes. The study area is shown on this map, and the Alston-Brighton neighborhood is the second largest neighborhood in the city, and as you know, has been experiencing significant levels of new development. The project timeline shows an 18-month schedule beginning last fall and ending in the spring of 2010. Since fall, we've conducted 2 extensive rounds of public engagement, documented past planning initiatives and pending development, analyzed existing conditions, received significant public comment about challenges and concerns, and established goals for the study. Let's see. We're in the middle of the timeline where it says we are here, and at this stage we're developing and analyzing a wide range of mobility improvement options for their usefulness and feasibility. This map and chart illustrate all the locations in Alston-Brighton where multimodal transportation improvement options will be analyzed in our work plan. Given the numerous suggestions from the Alston-Brighton community for desired mobility improvements, the list of potential transportation improvements to be modeled and evaluated is significantly larger than we'd originally contemplated. The work plan shown here will cost $91,300 more than originally budgeted. This $91,300 includes a 10% contingency. Regarding the recommendation to extend the term of the contract, as you may recall, BPDA planning will be kicking off the Western Avenue corridor study and rezoning, and recognizing that the additional time that will be needed to conduct this study and to understand the implications of the Western Avenue study for the larger Alston-Brighton Mobility Network, staff is recommending that the term of the AB Mobility Study be extended by 3 months from April 30th to July 30th of 2020. I would note that the contract amendments I've outlined are additive to the contract amendments approved by the board back in March. As indicated, the amount of the recommended contract increase is $91,300. This represents a 17.3% increase over the existing contract amount of $528,000. Of the $91,300, $85,000 will come from the transportation mitigation fees being collected from 2 Article 80 projects in Alston-Brighton, and the remaining $6,300 will come from the outstanding amount of unused funds remaining in the 2018 fiscal year budget for the AB Mobility Plan. This concludes the presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Ted. Item number 10, request authorization to enter into a 7-year lease agreement with Fenway Community Health Center, Inc. for the use of 4,045 square feet of space on the first floor and the basement within the China Trade Center located at 2 Boylston Street in Chinatown. Lauren.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Palmas, and Director Golden. My name is Lauren Fernstein. Today is my first presentation. I am here today to request that Fenway Health be approved to lease approximately 4,000 square feet of space in 2 Boylston, the China Trade Center building. The China Trade Center building consists of 85,000 square feet of rentable space, most of which is currently leased to not-for-profit agencies serving the Chinatown community, as well as providing education and health access to the heart of the city. Fenway Health in this building will be a good fit. The mission of Fenway Health is consistent with the outreach and community service agencies within the building. They are a federally qualified health center and research institution serving both the Fenway and other Boston neighborhoods. The mission of Fenway Health is to enhance the well-being of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community through access to the highest quality health care, education, research, and advocacy. This will be their 15th location serving the greater Boston area. Fenway Health recently received funding from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health to establish a sexually transmitted infection and HIV screening center called the DASH Center. Unlike other centers that offer these services, the DASH Center will use the latest technology to improve the ease and convenience of screening. The DASH Center is designed to be far less formal than a typical health clinic and will include unique, patient-focused, innovative features such as online appointment scheduling, touchscreen check-in and assessment, self-directed testing, results received securely via text message within 6 hours, and text reminders for routine retesting. The primary goal of the DASH Center is to reduce the barriers and stigmas associated with sexual health services for at-risk individuals in the greater Boston area. I'm proposing that the board approve the lease of 1,355 square feet on the first floor and 2,690 square feet on the basement level of 2 Boylston to Fenway Health to be used as a screening clinic. Unlike other leases recently executed in 2 Boylston Street, the BPDA will not be providing any funds towards a tenant improvement allowance for the build-out. Fenway Health will be taking the premises in as-is condition and will bear 100% of the cost to deliver the space in usable condition. We will, however, be paying a fee to a real estate commission to Boston Realty Advisors in the amount of $33,476. This fee is consistent with both the industry standard and fees paid by the BPDA to other real estate brokers at China Trade. The lease will commence on or about August 1st, 2019. Rent will commence on or about February 1st, 2020. The rent will start at $35 per square foot for the first floor space and $16.50 per square foot for the basement space. The first year total annual rent shall be $95,855. Both rates will increase annually by $1 per square foot for the 7-year term of the lease. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, good job.
Thank you.
Item number 11, request authorization to amend the ground lease with CVPA Chain Forge LLC, tenant and redeveloper of Building 105, also known as the Chain Forge Building, located on a portion of parcel NY-1 in the historic monument area of the Charlestown Navy Yard, and to allow additional time to obtain necessary approvals and permits and close on construction and equity financing. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In December of 2017, BPDA and CVPA Chain Forge LLC, or I'll refer to as the developer henceforth, executed a ground lease for development of the Chain Forge building into 230-room hotel. Under the terms and conditions of the lease, the developer would be in default in the event they did not obtain both building permits and financing by a date certain. In the meeting held in April 2019, the board authorized an extension of time to complete financing and obtain building permits to July 30th of 2019. Two issues remained for resolution. One, some profit sharing language that I spoke about that was imposed by the National Park Service, and also utilization of a new federal Opportunity Zone program as a mechanism to access equity as opposed to conventional financing. I'm pleased to report that the National Park Service, BPDA, and the developer have resolved the profit-sharing language, which will be inserted into the lease by our legal department. The developer is also in the final stages of negotiation with two investors to utilize the Opportunity Zone program. Generally speaking, the Opportunity Zone program allows investors to reinvest qualified capital gains from other projects into projects in the Opportunity Zone as a means of deferring capital gains taxes. It's similar in concept to the 1031 exchange program, if you're familiar with that. We're requesting permission to amend the lease to extend the deadline for both final financing and final building permits to September 30th of 2019. And we also plan to return either in August or September to request ratification of the final lease amendment terms and conditions. We all recognize and share some frustration that we keep coming back to request an extension, but it truly is because of our collective efforts to merge the requirements of the National Park Service, the Federal Historic Tax Credit Program, and the Opportunity Zone, Federal Opportunity Zone program into a single business model and legal document. As a result, the developers agreed to pay to BPDA a non-refundable fee of $95,000 for the requested extension to show both good faith and evidence that these extensions are not taken for granted. In the unlikely event that we return to ask for another extension, there will be an additional fee that will be even higher.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions on the board?
I have one question, Dennis. Are the Opportunity Zone investors made public?
I'm going to defer to Dick Galvin is with CV Properties. He's the principal
In the
of the
event that
developer.
they are part of the deal, will they be made public?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Director Golden, Secretary Palamas. Yes, the short answer is we'll comply with all disclosure requirements under BPDA requirements, typical of any equity investors in BPDA projects. So I would say the short answer is yes.
Is that part of the federal law that they be made public or not? No. Okay.
No.
Thank you. What?
Are there any other
Okay, got it.
questions on the?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Dick, you can say that Dennis, but it's for Dennis, but you'll get the question. I can appreciate the reasons. It sounds like it's out of really developers' control, and 95,000 good reasons doesn't hurt to go along too. But there's been 4 previous extensions that really had nothing to do with you, Dick. But now it is. And what exactly is going to happen over the next 60 days? And my concern is the same as yours, in the sense of we know that there's economic development windows that are only open for so long, and we know they can change quick. I'd hate to miss this cycle, as you would. I don't want to miss it for the jobs and have that place sit another 10. Could sit 10 years if we miss
So
it.
that's the central question. So what we're focused on now is herding the cats, so to speak. We have these equity investors that Dennis referenced that are the Opportunity Zone ones. We have a federal tax credit investor. We have a first mortgage construction lender. Okay, we have a bridge lender for the tax credits. They're all lined up. Now we're finishing up the documentation because all these things are linked together, and that takes time.
Oh, I know, yeah.
It's a legal bonanza, as you might expect, but that's the time we need to get there. We have a GMP lined up with Consigli, so all those things are in place. We just need the time because it's so complicated to document, and the opportunity zone is so new. Some of this we're learning on the fly.
So over
So
the
I'm willing to spend $100,000 of my money to make that bet.
What do you think the odds are to get that all wrapped up by September 30th?
I think they're very high. You know, I don't want to come back and spend another $225.
Yeah.
But I think it's a fair economic deal. But I would say we're in very good shape to make that happen.
Okay, let's hope so, because I'd like to get that going.
It's a fantastic project.
Yeah.
It's a
It really is.
$145 million project.
When you go over on the Charlestown Navy Yard, you really can't believe that a building like that exists that's not developed yet.
And for those that have not been in it, it's amazing structure.
That and the rope walk and others, really amazing that they haven't been developed over this.
30 years.
Yeah. But just even the last second, this window that we're in right now, it's
Well, I think that just speaks to how difficult, never mind the financial structure, the physical structure. There's a major environmental remediation, obviously major physical remediation according to park standards, so.
yeah, great, thank you.
The opportunity zone investments have some deadlines built into them, don't they?
Yeah, so, and again, this is a good thing relative to this investment. To maximize the opportunity zone benefits, the investment needs to be made this year in 2019. So all these investors that we've got lined up, that we're bringing together, all have created gains over the past 6 months that they need 180 days then to deploy, or by the year end. So we've set up the opportunity zone entities, we've set up the opportunity zone business for the Navy Yard to take that money in.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 12, request authorization to extend final designation of P-3 Partners LLC as redeveloper of a portion of parcel P3 and a portion of P3H in the Campus High School urban renewal area. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Polhimos and Director Golden. We came to you in April of this year to request the final designation of P3 Partners as the redeveloper of parcel P3 in relation to the proposed Tremont Crossing project. Since the time of that designation, the development team has been working with BPDA staff and other city partners, BPDA in particular, on the negotiations related to the lease for that property. In addition, the development team has received approval on the zoning from the Boston Zoning Commission, as well as has been noted before, work with the Boston Water and Sewer Commission on the easements related to the proposed sewer relocation. One of the significant components that's part of the lease negotiation is the finalization of the actual square footage with the water and sewer approvals and the Public Improvement Commission work that's been done on the actual site. So the components of the lease will comprise approximately 2.1 million square feet. That's definitively articulated in the lease that's being negotiated now. We're requesting this extension to the final designation to allow time for the completion of lease negotiations with the expectation that a lease will be executed fairly soon, thereby allowing the development team to move forward with the very important work of site preparation to start the project. In addition to some of the next steps that we are anticipating over the next several months, very soon, are updates to the Roxbury Strategic Master Plan Oversight Committee, in particular the Project Review Committee, for which there is a meeting scheduled on July 24th, during which the development team will articulate and explain many of the remediation activities that will be undertaken to be in compliance with the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. This is a public involvement process project by virtue of the amount of environmental review that needs to get taken. So that will be part of the review for the July 24th PRC meeting, in addition to other related project updates. We we on the staff level and senior leadership at the agency deem that this particular extension is appropriate given the amount of progress being made by the development team in collaboration with BPDA and other city partners. I'll conclude my remarks there. I'll acknowledge that the existence, or the presence, I should say, of our development team partners here for questions that I'm happy to answer as well.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Are there any questions from the board?
Do the parties here understand that a further extension beyond this one would not likely be viewed favorably by the majority of us on the board?
They are aware.
So they understand this is it? Thank you.
Yes.
If there's no further questions, then a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Dana. Item number 13, request authorization to issue a certificate of completion for the Nashua Street residence located at 1 Causeway Street in the North Station Economic Development Area. Raul.
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. The Avalon North Station project went through a number of iterations, most recently in 2015 when a notice of project change was filed. The project was completed in 2017. ISD issued a certificate of occupancy for it. We recently conducted a site visit, and we determined that it was completed in conformance with the approved plans. Therefore, we're here to request a certificate of completion.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all's in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
Item number 14, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Small Project Review of the Zoning Code pursuant to notice of project change, recognizing the change of ownership to 10 Everett Development LLC for the construction of 19 residential ownership units, including 2 IDP units, located at 10 through 16 Everett Street, subject to continuing BRA design review and to take all related actions. Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, and Madam Secretary. On July 13th, 2017, this project was approved by this board. The project located at 10-16 Everett Street was recently acquired by 10 Everett Development LLC. The originally approved project of a 4-story, 19 condominium units with off-street parking for 21 spaces, including 2 IDP units, will not change or be modified due to this new ownership entity. Staff requests that the board authorize the director to issue a certification of approval, that the project team continue BRA design review, and any and all related actions. Patrick Mahoney, the project counsel, is here to answer any questions, along with the project proponent, Mr. Adam Burns.
Okay, thank you, Lance. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 15, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the construction of 19 residential rental units, including 3 IDP units, 1,063 square feet of commercial retail space, 14 parking spaces, and bicycle storage located at 142 through 144 Old Colony Ave, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Lance.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The new 5-story mixed-use building includes 19 units with 1,063 square feet of retail space and 669 square feet of amenity space with garage parking for 10 vehicles. The unit mix consists of 1 studio, 18 one-bedrooms, 3 of which will be designated as IDP units. The proponent has committed $20,000 towards a future transportation action plan for the planned South Boston Dorchester Avenue study. Staff requests authorization to issue a certification of approval in accordance with Article 80, execute and deliver an affordable rental housing agreement, a community benefits package, and a recommendation to Board of Appeal in connection to this project. Project Counsel Patrick Mahoney is here to address any questions from the board members. Tim Johnson will give you a brief presentation of the project details.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Director Golden, Chairman of the Board, and Secretary Plurmis. My name is Patrick Mahoney. I'm the attorney for the project at 142 Old Colony. The parcel at 142 Old Colony is approximately 3,300 square feet. It's located one block in from D Street and Old Colony. As seen here, the parking will be accessed, 14 semi-automated parking spaces accessed from the rear on 9th Street. It's a 5-story proposed building with 19 rental units, which are smaller than the area median standard. As a result of that, there is a common space on the second floor to make up for that, which is part of the BPDA recommendation. Is a picture of the existing building, which is a currently underutilized site for glass service installation, and the height of the building was determined. Just here, initially, the planning initiative is 60 feet. There are a number of zoning variances required for this, although it does meet the Dorchester Ave planning initiative. The height is matching the existing building erected about 2 years ago on the left at the corner of D and Old Colony. The exterior siding is the same on the front, and this is the 9th Street where the parking would be accessed location. The exterior siding is a terracotta base material and metal panel base siding. The last slide will give us an indication of what it should look like when it's completed. With that, if there's any questions that the board may have.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Are there any questions from the board?
I just have one quick question on the parking. I know that's always a discussion in this area. Can you tell us a little bit about the parking technologies that you're using with this project, and kind of why you feel the number of spaces that are going to be available makes sense for this particular area?
There are 19 units and 14 spaces, so it's less parking than would be required under the current base zoning. There was a bit of a concern as to number of parking spaces. Initially, the development team came in with a lower number of parking spaces. They chose a semi-automated lift system, which is essentially a one-up, one-down shuffle type system, but it is open to the air. It's there's 2 manufacturers that make it in the area. One is City Lift, another one is Harding Steel. Both have been used, and both, I believe, are signatory to the elevator union. A couple of to give 2 examples that the board has seen before that are now in operation. There's one at 39A Street, which is City Lift, and Harding Steel has a parking one at the Eddy, which is 626 New Street. So those are 2 examples of this type of system. With a rental building that is residential use, with 19 units, I'm not a traffic engineer, but based on other larger projects, I think it's approximately 4 vehicle trips per hour at peak times. So the 2-minute lead time it takes to get your vehicle, I think, is sufficient. It does work for residential applications very, very well. If it was a higher use, like a shopping mall with a 4-car high, this is a 3-car high, I think there might be some concern, but I don't think there is one in this case.
Okay, if there's no further questions, and a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Item number 16, request authorization to issue a scoping determination waiving the requirement for further review pursuant to Article 80, Section 80B-5.3D of the Large Project Review for the construction of the Commonwealth Pier Revitalization Project located at 200 Seaport Boulevard, consisting of enhanced public access to the waterfront, extension of the apron design, extension of the open space, employee resiliency measures, provide retail and event facilities, and improve access to the Seaport Hotel event space, and to take all related actions. Ashley.
Thank you, Chairman Burke. Good afternoon, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. I'm pleased to be before you this evening to recommend approval of the adaptive reuse and revitalization of the Seaport World Trade Center, which sits upon Commonwealth Pier at 200 Seaport Boulevard on the South Boston waterfront. Pembroke Real Estate has owned and occupied the Seaport World Trade Center through a long-term ground lease with the Massachusetts Port Authority for over 3 decades. The proposed project is a transformative one, which will modernize and reposition the existing Seaport World Trade Center building in Commonwealth Pier for its next generation of use as a vibrant place for work, retail, events, and activated public waterfront space. At present, the Seaport World Trade Center totals approximately 705,700 square feet of gross floor area, inclusive of 132,050 square feet of exhibition hall space. The proposed program of the Commonwealth Pier Revitalization Project sees the elimination of the exhibition hall space and the addition of approximately 31,860 square feet of gross floor area, for a total building size of approximately 737,560 square feet of gross floor area. A full breakdown of the proposed programming under this renovation and revitalization is available in your board memo. In addition to the approximately 170,000 square feet of new and exciting public realm space that the Commonwealth Pier Revitalization Project will bring to the South Boston waterfront and Seaport District, Pembroke Real Estate has also made the following commitments: a contribution of $100,000 to one or more local nonprofit organizations supporting financial literacy, workforce training, and/or harbor-related uses, which will be distributed through the BPDA's Community Benefits Application process. Funding and overseeing the completion of a study that further develops initial findings identified in climate-ready South Boston, focusing on the area along Seaport Boulevard between the project site and the Fish Pier, Approximately 3,000 square feet of space in the rehabilitated Seaport World Trade Center shall be available for rent through a request for information process to be conducted by the proponent to a tenant which supports community uses, fosters greater diversity and inclusion, furthers educational efforts, or achieves similar goals. This space will also be complementarily available for use by community groups at least 4 evenings per month. The proposed project includes the construction of a water shuttle dock space on the east side of Commonwealth Pier at an estimated cost of approximately $500,000 to the proponent. In closing, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the members of the Commonwealth Pier Revitalization Project Impact Advisory Group for their time and efforts through this Article 80 review process. Their commitment to their neighborhood and dedication to the City of Boston is greatly appreciated. I'm joined this evening by Andrew Dankworth, Senior Vice President for Design and Development with Pembroke Real Estate, who will further describe the project. Both I and Andy are happy to answer any questions the board may have after his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name's Andrew Dankworth. I'm with Pembroke Real Estate. I'd like to take you through a few of the images. I think you'll be somewhat familiar with these as we move through. From a team standpoint, we have aligned ourselves with a terrific team. One of the points I want to make that we have been working very closely with Massport, the owner of the land, and we have benefited, I think, greatly from their input in terms of public realm and a number of other issues. The big story about this project today is its underutilization. It is, at the end of its essentially useful life, it's an inhospitable sort of back office sort of experience. And what we see is enormous potential, not just to revitalize a workplace experience, but also to revitalize a waterfront experience. These are kind of the 5 major components, but not in any particular order. We never lost sight, and we will continue to not lose sight of the origins and the marine operations, both commercial sense, but also from the activation of those and making sure that the current marine tenants operate during construction. The building is historically listed. We feel that our team has come up with a very sensitive and appropriate response for the historic component. The public realm and urban design improvements is probably one of the biggest features of this property and the design. What's currently so inhospitable to walk along the harbor front, if any of you have done it, it's 1,200 feet long and about 300 feet across and another 1,200 feet long. And there's really nothing there except, occasional views outward. We think we're going to be activating this space very successfully and giving the public a reason to come down and enjoy it. And we've been in this neighborhood for some time, and we've experienced kind of the lack of that activity, and we really think this is going to make a big movement toward improving that. The site access and service loading, it sounds fairly pragmatic, but in reality, it enables us to solve some very real problems about street access and the frontage that is problematic today along Seaport Boulevard, the lack of a coherent pedestrian zone, and also the traffic from some of the large events that have to be serviced off of that street. And the resilience and sustainability is an enormous issue for us given where we are, but we have a very good engineering solution that I can talk about a little bit more. So starting from the marine operations, the first thing was, as I said, was to preserve and promote what we feel is its origins and its commercial industrial use down there. We are upgrading, we're widening the apron extensions. We're creating apron extensions. That alleviates some of the throat problems of getting enough people off of Seaport Boulevard and into the Harbor Walk, because right now it's quite narrow. It also helps us solve some of the transportation issues. The waiting and seating areas that we'll be creating for a water shuttle, I don't know if this has, I don't want to push it, but there's a little purple dot in the top corner in that green space. That's a ticketing office for the current commercial water tenants. We have also a new facility for a future water shuttle that we think would work really well to plug into the North Station route and help some of that traffic issues that affect everybody. Some of the images, if it's origins, but you can see that the profile of this building, the clear story, the warehouse, the mercantile origins is something that we really wanted to build upon. In the actual floor plan, what's really the big story here, I think, is the activation of Seaport Boulevard by moving all the loading docks out of that blue zone and into a consolidated loading area in gray. It's the large public event space. By retiring the exhibit hall, it opens up quite a large space for public activity and programming. And then these niches, so that there is something to do as you walk along the harbor front. On the upper level, the big move here is to consolidate our event space that's spread out throughout the building right now and bring that closer up to the front of the building. Also, we've been diligent in activating the viaduct itself so that there's activity. It's not about cars and trucks anymore, it's about people. So the plaza, just to give you a sense of scale, it's overlaid in yellow on some of these other projects, but it is quite large. We've been working with our team to look at a balance between hard fixed elements, landscaping, and open space so that we can have flexibility for programming in the future. There's an image of it, but it also gives you a sense of the scale. The idea here is that the seaport extension, or the apron extension will tear down to the water, but it also, what you're seeing against the head house is a much wider throat to allow people into this, so that, we're widening that access and encouraging and inviting the public to come in. This is just some images about the type of programming, whether it be small community markets, but the flexibility, whether it's an ice skating sort of pavilion in here, larger tents, movies, things like that are all possible. This image shows really, I think, the improved Seaport Boulevard experience. So currently, there's just the sidewalk to walk on. By pulling back the retail and creating a pedestrian arcade, it gives a sense of scale and also a much wider throat for the traffic that we have down there. There's an overall image that shows that arcade as well. The niches themselves, we're continuing to work on what the opportunities around these, but they're being programmed, envisioned to be dynamic. They're not fixed, that they can change over time, adapt. It would be inclusive and community-based. And we think that there's a lot of experience that we're going to learn from these as we move forward. As I mentioned before, the viaduct itself and the movement toward it, it used to be just trucks and cars, and now it's really about creating a space up there for people to look over the bridge toward the downtown area and get that vista. So it's all public space up there. It has been, but now it has people have a reason to be there. On the North Pier, there's been a lot of discussion about how to activate that. We are very focused on that element and giving people a destination. Iconic art, sized art, you know, the selfie sort of scale things that we could put at the corners to draw people down, but also seating and some landscaping. We'll also be complementing this with a very in-depth wayfinding program. As I mentioned, the Seaport Boulevard, we were looking to do a more cohesive retail plan, and again, it's much more pedestrian oriented. From a resiliency standpoint, we've been working to a 2070 benchmark in terms of resiliency, and the primary way that we're achieving this is to build up a continuous upstand around the building, and that building upstand is set at the 2070 mark of 21.6 Boston City base. We're also reconstructing the apron, and the leading edge of that apron will have sufficient reinforcement for future crash barriers as well. This doesn't speak to all of the other aspects that we're doing from a geological standpoint, a geotechnical standpoint, and mechanical, raising all of our critical infrastructure. We believe we're going to be able to achieve LEED Gold for the shell and core, and we're also looking at solar panels on the roof and battery storage as that technology becomes more feasible. Right now we're providing the space for it and the connectivity. And that's a summary of it. I can address any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
This is a very large and significant parcel. My recollection is that I was once told that if this building stood on its end, it would be as tall as the Hancock Tower. And it's been used for many years as a conference and convention, either center or affiliate of the convention center. And you've got a very creative team here, but I'm still not sure I understand what exactly the interior spaces are going to be used for. You've referenced activation of the space, and our memo says that you're eliminating the existing exhibit event space and replacing it with public realm improvements and first-class event spaces. But what does that really mean? I mean, you've only made reference to farm markets and...
So the prime use of this building is office space. Our sole tenant, Fidelity Investments, will be taking that space. The event space, the first-class event space, is really a consolidation and a rebuilding of the assorted ballrooms that are around and all the meeting spaces that exist, but they're spread out all over the floor plate. And what we're trying to do is consolidate that, bring it up closer. But those are all available for the public to rent. They are the same ballrooms. They're there for weddings and events. There's also space downstairs in some of the staging areas. It's a little purple strip in front of the plaza itself. But the retail on the upper level, we are looking at restaurant space. There's more event space in the arches on the right side, and then the ground floor retail. The activation is around primarily on the exterior for the niches and the public waterfront.
What impact is that likely to have on pedestrian congestion and traffic?
So our traffic studies, there's a marginal increase, but that's offset quite a bit by the issues that I mentioned before. By pulling off the loading off of the street and widening the neck so that people don't spill out there. We think we're going to get a lot more people down here for sure, but we're going to be accommodating them. The Seaport parking garage that we have across the street has more than enough capacity for parking, but we've also made accommodations for drop-off and staging areas of rideshare.
And in reference to things like rideshare, can you tell me what accommodations you're making for bicycles and other alternative forms of transportation, and what kinds of, as specifically as you can, what kinds of accommodations you're making in that regard?
So the bicycle parking, we have, I think it's 180 spaces of parking, and they're in a couple of locations on the upper level as well as in the area right behind the head house. And people can bring in and park undercover in that area. It's also right adjacent to where the water shuttle would be coming up. So we also have the water shuttle piece, which would be a major component of multimodal transportation at the site. For ride sharing on the upper level, there's the roundabout right in front of the hotel, but there's also quite a length of drop-off area there, as well as along Seaport Boulevard. We have extended curb areas that would not be for metered spaces.
And given the number of trucks along Seaport Boulevard, what accommodations are you making specifically for bicycle lanes or dedicated lanes along Seaport Boulevard in front of this building?
We don't have control of the land out there. That's actually Massport's. I know what's important to them is we are not putting in bike lanes along that section because of the conflict, as we understand it, with the large trucks that are down there. So from our standpoint, we're providing on-site accommodations, but it doesn't link up in a drive to some of the other bike lanes.
So the bike lanes that the BPDA itself and the city's transportation department have put along Seaport Boulevard would have an interrupt in front of this building?
Well, they would share the lane with the actual traffic, but it's a much wider section in this length. Yep.
Well, I'd have to say I have a concern if some kinds of arrangements can't be made between the developer and Massport and us around accommodating bicycles and pedestrians along that strip, because I once had a loft space down there, and I know what the truck traffic is like. And I also know who's moving into the area, and the inclination that new residents and workers have to both walk and to use their bicycles along there. And I would hope that as the proponent, you would exert whatever influence you could to increase the safety for bicyclists and other forms of alternative transportation along that strip.
Oh, sure.
So, Jonathan Gurley, Director of Development Review here at the BPDA. I think the proponent here should be commended on the type of project they're doing holistically. It's taking an existing asset that was repurposed and revitalized decades ago and doing the same thing today. Additionally, the focus on a commercial center, enhanced environmental resilience is really, really important, is an example for in significant public space. That being said, for a major employment center to sit on a boulevard that does not have full bike accommodations, I think we remain strong advocates of complete streets. Mayor Walsh has clearly called for that in the Imagine Boston 2030 plan and the Go Boston 2030 plan, and I think we've put our money where our mouth is regard to Seaport Boulevard and the complete street design for Seaport Boulevard. We would urge the proponent here, Pembroke and Fidelity, to continue to advocate in partnership with the city, Massport, on delivering those complete streets, in delivering on the promise of this evolving neighborhood as it shifts from a purely commercial corridor to a place where we move all types of people and all modes of transit. So that's something that we certainly appreciate your comments here tonight and your advocacy on that issue, and you have our commitment that we will continue to push Massport to deliver those 21st century streets.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from the board? Go right ahead.
More of a comment. Jonathan, you said it much better than I could. I worked in that building 32 years ago on that major renovation for Bennett Electric Company. So that building is a very difficult building, mainly all the columns that you have, and it's just not set up today to be conducive to an office, but you've done the best you could. I think this is great.
You worked on the renovation?
Yeah, 87.
Okay, cool. That's great.
That's, I think, when Fidelity went in there, right? Isn't that when Fidelity went in there? I think it was for Fidelity. Yeah, huge renovation in there. When the whole roof ended up on Northern Avenue, when the windstorm got underneath the rubber, and that whole brand-new roof ended up on the street.
I have a question. I think the Seaport comes under some criticism for being a white luxury space, and I'm wondering how intentional, what is going to be your strategy strategically to make this an inclusive and diverse space with all your new public realm and your waterfront, and what is your intention and strategy to do that?
We are committed to making sure that this isn't a activation for the expensive condos down there, that we need to outreach, have a program to outreach to the communities who are not adjacent, who are not expecting to come there with ice skates and all of the things that we'll take for granted ourselves. So we will have a public, a full-time, what do you call it, community liaison manager who will be helping us to manage these spaces, but also to reach out to various groups and through not only our internal diversity and inclusion group within Fidelity, but also some of the community groups to make sure that we work toward programming events that's inclusive. We'll also be looking at some of the retail to see if there's some element of the retail leasing that could be also made available to people that normally wouldn't be able to be in this location. One of the things I do want to say at the onset of the project, we've taken Massport's great sort of program that they established on the Omni of requiring a joint venture between the general contractor and a minority-owned general contractor. It's very successful on that, and we see the value that that brings to opening up doors in the future for other large projects. So that is a very strong commitment we've made.
Great, thank you.
I had one other question on your resilience strategy. You describe upstands as part of how the property would be protected. Could you describe what an upstand is?
So basically the building today, the apron is right about 17.9 elevation BCD. The water's pretty long below that. But we think the 2070 mark is going to be around 20.5 feet. And what that means is we need to create essentially a bathtub on this. We can't raise the floor of the building. The soils wouldn't take it and would mean demolishing the whole building. So what we're doing essentially is building a bathtub wall that is cast with the new apron concrete, comes up to a height. Outside it's quite tall. Inside it's not as tall because we have raised floor and other pumping and resiliency measures. At openings, we'll be deploying barriers, deployable barriers, but we've really tried to limit that because the success of large deployable barriers in a timely fashion is not realistic for us. There's also the element of future planning. When there is a district solution, what we've been looking at is not doing anything that would preclude that from happening. That's very important to us as that discussion evolves.
Thanks.
Okay, if there's no further questions and a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Item number 17, request authorization to amend the Affordable Housing Agreement with 2451 Washington LLC for the 2451 Washington Street project to include the Neighborhood Diversity Preservation's preference. Tim?
Thank you, Secretary Palimas, Chairman Burke, members of the board. The 2451 Washington Street project at the corner of Washington Street and Shawman Ave in Roxbury is being developed by Madison Park Development Corporation and contains 16 condominium units. 7 of these units will be income restricted at 80% and 100% of area median income under the Inclusionary Development Program. The building is nearing the end of its construction and entering the marketing period. The proponent has approached the BPDA and the City's Department of Fair Housing and Equity about the possibility of applying the Neighborhood Diversity Preservation preference to the proposed project. The board approved this policy in August of 2017 after the proposed project was originally approved. The NDPP, or as it's called, allows for a developer to provide a preference for up to 1/2 of the IDP units for people living within an area around the project. D&D screens each location for eligibility based upon race, ethnicity, poverty, and housing cost burden. D&D has determined that this proposed project is eligible and would be applied to 3 of the 7 units. It is implemented through the fair housing marketing process and would be included in the fair marketing plan. As this preference was not outlined in the Affordable Housing Agreement, we are asking for your vote today to amend the agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
What effect would this have on gentrification in the area?
Well, what it does is that for 3 of the 7 units, it actually gives a preference for households already living within a certain area around the building, which could help to alleviate gentrification in that way.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Thank you, Tim. Item number 18. Request authorization to issue a certificate of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6, small project review for the zoning code for the construction of 44 age-restricted affordable rental units, 2,400 square feet of community space, 9 off-street parking spaces, including 2 handicap spaces, located at 9 Leland Street, and to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief and to take all related actions. Ebony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, and members of the board. The project before you is 9 Leland Street in Roxbury. The proposal is for an approximately 41,000 gross square foot, 5-story, age-restricted and income-restricted residential rental building consisting of 43 units. Of the 43 units, there will be 16 one-bedroom units at 30% AMI, 25 one-bedroom units at 60% AMI, and 2 two-bedroom units at 60% AMI. The proposed project will also contain 9 off-street parking spaces, including 2 handicap accessible spaces, laundry facilities, and community space that will provide health and social services for the residents. On May 29th, 2019, the proponent filed an application for small project review with the BPDA. On June 20th, the BPDA sponsored a public meeting at the Cottage Brook Apartments Community Center in Roxbury. The public comment period ended on June 28th, 2019. At this time, I will turn it over to John Mahoney, who is the project manager for Dorchester Bay Economic Development Corporation. He will go over the presentation in more detail, after which we will gladly take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name's John Mahoney. I'm a project manager at Dorchester Bay Economic Development. I want to thank you for your time here. The Dudley Street, Leland Street project is located in the middle of the screen there. Directly across the street from it is the Leland Street Trustees of Reservation Community Garden. Down to the right, about a block away, is the Croc Center, and just directly abutting that is the MBTA commuter rail station, the up on the Indigo line. Surrounding the property on Leland Street to the right, there is a 2-family house. We've met with that resident 2 times, and up to now she's expressed support for the project. A particular concern of her has been the activity on the site that's been vacant for 30 to 40 years, and she's concerned about the activity there at night. So she's very anxious to get the project going. To the right of that, down the rest of the block on that side, is property owned by Dorchester Bay Affordable Housing. And behind the project on Dudley Street, There is the Dudley Village Apartments, which is a project that Dorchester Bay did approximately 15 years ago. And also along that corridor down Dudley Street, there's additional Cottage Brook Apartments. From this, you can see that the green area is the, up at the top is the community gardens. Across the street from that is the Laneland Street lot. It's 17,000 square feet. As I said, it's been vacant for about 30 to 40 years. At one time, there had been 4 three-family houses there that were demoed, and the basements are still in the ground. And actually, further down, probably about 3 blocks from there is the Upham's Corner Retail District. From there, there's also access to 2 bus routes that take you to the directly to the Orange Line and the Red Line. This is a picture of the property as it is right now. In the background, you can see the Dudley Village Apartments. To the left of it is the 2-family house existing property. To the right of that, it might show in another picture, there's a drive lane to the parking behind that lot that is used by Dudley Village. From that drive lane will be the access to the parking for our lot. There will be no new curb cut on Dudley or on Leyland Street. Again, in the upper right-hand corner, number 1 is the existing garden. 2 is the ones along Leland Street. That is the Cottage Brook Apartments. There's 31 units at that location. Behind it is the playground in the upper right-hand corner that for Dudley Village. It will be actually somewhat of a backyard to the property, which we think will be a nice amenity for the residents there. The bottom corner there on the left is the house that's directly abutting the property on the south side, and in the lower right-hand corner is the property that you can kind of see that drive lane there. That will be the access for the parking area. And further down towards East Cottage Street is that six-family property. It's actually 2 3-families. This kind of is something that we've already seen up to date. As you can see, the parking on the left side of the property from here will be fully exposed. That is, again, also something we talked with the BPDA about early on in the process. We wanted to make sure it was fully exposed for safety purposes. This site section shows, in a sense, how the building fits in with the area height-wise. Towards the right, those are the buildings on Dudley Street. Because of the change in grade and essentially and the height of the buildings up there, this building will be approximately the same height as the building as the ones on Dudley Street. To the left of that drawing, it can't make it out too well from here at least, is the 2 showing the other properties on Leland Street. This is the Leland Street, facing Leland Street. One thing that we think is important, the front entry is roughly in the middle of the building. It will be fully glazed, again, to make it more inviting for residents. And to the right of it is the community room. It's about 750 square feet, and when that will be fully glazed on 2 sides, that will, again, it's a space that's serving the residents. In addition to that, it's going to be serving the community. We have a direct entrance from the outside, so residents of the community can use it without bothering anyone in the building. This shows, again, the back of the building facing towards Dudley Street. Again, in the center, we're going to have kind of a straight pass-through for the entrance. We're going to fully glaze that to make it more inviting to the back and for residents to be sitting outside, again, or right inside as the weather dictates. with the playground back there. To the right of that is the building that's directly abutting us. And in this picture, we have not fully developed, we're working with the architect to develop the plans for the facade. We're looking at either fiber cement board. We want to have a durable masonry base, and also probably some metal panel accents. That is something that we've used on Dudley Village that you can see at the top of the screen there. Again, this is another viewpoint showing it from the south towards the building with the parking area on the right there. I'd be glad to help you with any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions on the board? Hearing none, a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you
Congratulations.
for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you.
We got time for one more before we take our break. Number 19, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E-6 of the Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the construction of 14 rental units, including 2 IDP units, following the city's compact living policy pilot located at 141 Westville Street, to recommend approval to the Board of Appeal for the necessary zoning relief with continuing design review and to take all related actions. Tim.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The proposed project is located on an approximately 3,000 square foot lot at 141 Westville Street in the Fields Corner neighborhood of Dorchester. The proposed project is a 4-story, approximately 36-foot tall residential building totaling approximately 5,820 square feet. The building will contain 14 rental units and is designed under the compact living policy approved by this board in October 2018. Ordinarily, a project of this size would not be subject to small project review. However, the compact living policy requires any compact project under the under the small project review thresholds of either 15 units or 20,000 square feet to opt into small project review to facilitate a community process and a design review of the unit sizes and shared amenity spaces. The proponent filed the small project review application on April 8th, 2019, and a BPDA-sponsored community meeting was held on May 2nd, 2019. The meeting was well attended, and many community members expressed their strong support for the project. The proponent, Vivian Girard, is a local business owner and intends to rent these units for $650 to $850 a month. The proponent has agreed to rent the 2 required inclusionary development policy units to individuals earning up to 50% of the area median income, rather than the standard 70%, to make the IDP units more in line with the goals of the unrestricted units. BPDA staff believes that the proposed project will be a positive addition to the neighborhood and is recommending approval of the proposed project. In addition, I've been asked to pass along that Councilor Frank Baker regrets he was unable to speak in person this afternoon, but that he supports the proposed project. I'll now ask Vivian Girard to introduce himself and give a brief presentation, and will be available for questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Vivian Girard. My wife, Elisa, and I are the proponent of this project at 141 Westville Street. And Jen West, who is here from Bohem Architecture, is our architect. I will give a very brief introduction and background of what we're proposing, and Jen will give more details about the plans. We're all Fields Corner residents, actually, and this is where this project is located. And my wife and I and a business partner also own a bakery cafe, as Jim mentioned, and I've been doing some property management as well in the neighborhood. We're all well aware that for our employees and for so many people in the city, housing and housing costs in particular are a great challenge. So this is what we're trying to tackle here the best we can. So in October of 2018, the city of Boston implemented a progressive housing pilot program called Boston Compact Living. And under these innovative guidelines, we want to build a small development consisting of 14 studio apartments with a strong emphasis on affordability, optimal land use, and high energy efficiency. Our pledge, as Tim mentioned, is to keep all 14 studios rented at between $650 and $850 a month in perpetuity, with the rents adjusted only to make up for inflation. The building will be located in our lively Fields Corner community and marketed as a transit-oriented development where people will be strongly encouraged to walk or bike or use public transportation. We've built a full-scale model of one of the studio units on the vacant lot itself. So in order to show it to the nearby residents and to the community, and whoever wants to see it, it is still on site to this day. It's been very well received so far, and we are confident that what we are offering will be an asset in our neighborhood. So Jen West is from Bohem Architecture is going to take over the rest of the presentation, and I will still be around to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, thank you. My name is Jennifer West. I'm with Beam Architecture. And I will go through the design proposal. So maps on the left just show the proximity of the site, 141 Westville, to Fields Corner, and the photos on the right show the neighborhood context of multifamily housing and the proximity of the site to Geneva Ave. And these photos show the immediate site context with a 3-family triple-decker on the east side. On the west side, a single-story commercial building. And then the photo at the bottom shows looking from Geneva Ave through the site, and it looks over a community garden. The proposed design, there's a street entrance at grade on Westville Ave with landscaping on the east side and an access path along the west edge, which abuts the retail building. And the rear photo shows the view looking over that community garden. No fence is proposed at that rear edge of the property because there's currently, 141 Westville is currently used as a cut-through from Geneva Ave to Westville Street, and Vivian will maintain that access, and people will be directed to the west side pathway along the property edge. That's shown on the site plan on the left, shows that access path. The ground floor plan has 2 Group 1 accessible units as well as the common amenity space. I have a diagram later that explains what those are. So the exterior elevations, we've kept the exterior fairly simple and minimal with there's a concern for upfront costs as well as long-term ease of maintenance and operating costs going forward. There is a siding change at the ground level to painted board and batten for durability and just interest. We're still in design review with our team right now on that. Map on the left shows the transportation connection. So it's we're 0.35 miles from the red line, the Fields Corner MBTA red line stop, which also has blue bike racks, and also along Geneva Ave there are several bus stations and also close walking distance to Fields Corner. So on the right shows the shared amenities on the ground floor level. There's a common lounge, there's indoor bike parking and a repair station, on-site laundry, and then the rear edge shows there's an outdoor patio, 270 square foot outdoor patio that abuts that community garden. So the spaces sort of flow together back there. And these are just 2 typical unit layouts. The one on the left is the ground floor Group 1 unit, just showing 2 different furniture configurations. And the one on the right is a typical upper level unit with the same, just showing 2 different furniture configurations. And then these are photos of the model unit that Vivian mentioned. And that's it. Any questions?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the board?
It's just great to see innovation at this scale. Really
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, then a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
you very much.
Congratulations and good luck. We're going to take a brief 5-minute recess before we get into the public hearings. So, 5-minute recess.
Very cool.
I'm going to go to item number 22. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held to consider the Cote Village project located at 820 Cummins Highway and 30 through 32 Regis Road in Mattapan, and to consider the proposed 121A. The proposed project calls for the construction of 76 affordable units, retail, office space, and off-street parking for 84 vehicles. This hearing was duly advertised on June 26, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Mr. Campbell will now proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. I'd first like to introduce a letter that just came in by hand from the Woodhaven Colbert Regis Neighborhood Association. It's a letter of support for the project. The proposed project was previously approved by BPDA Board on April 14, 2016. The board authorized the director to adopt the report and decision, approving the original proposed project under a 121A, issuing a scope and determination, waiving further review, issuing a certification of compliance, and entering in and executing a cooperation agreement, Boston Residence and Construction and Employment Plan. Due to certain delays in finalizing funding, the proposed project on April 2016 report and decision automatically terminated on March 31st, 2018. Since that time, the applicants have been able to secure financing for the proposed project. The funding sources to be utilized by the applicants required that the proposed project have two separate ownerships, i.e. the Cote Village applicant and the Cote Village Townhomes applicant. As a result of the request to have two separate As a result of the request to have two separate owners, the proponent on June 27th of this year, i.e. the applicant, submitted a notice of project change letter to the BPDA. Pursuant to the notice of project change application, explained the change in ownership structure necessitated by the financing structure of the proposed project. Doesn't that just sound like a tongue twister? Notably, the applicants have not proposed any other changes to the proposed project since it was approved by this board in 2016. There's some folks who can explain this a whole lot better in detail than I can. Ruth Silman, the project counsel, will briefly address the board, and David Aiken on the development team will also give a brief overview of the existing project.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Ruth Silman with Nixon Peabody. So we are here. This project was approved as a single 121A entity in 2016. You've heard this before. Due to some of the financing that's occurring at the state level and the combination of 4% and 9% tax credits, we're now here requesting a 121A approval for kind of a single application on behalf of two applicants, two separate limited partnerships. So that's the Cote Village Limited Partnership and the Cote Village Townhomes Limited Partnership. The project itself hasn't changed. I'm going to introduce Dave Aiken in just a moment to explain the project, give you kind of an update. There was a sunset provision that Lance referred to in the 2016 approval, and so the 121A approvals actually had expired, which is why we needed to do a new application as opposed to an amendment to the application. The project was formally approved for Article 80, and so we're here with the notice of project change again to add the two limited partnership entities who will be taking on the role of developer of the project. It's terrific that the city is so vibrant with respect to construction workers and financing, but that does make it competitive, and that's really the reason why there's been a delay on timing. We are thrilled that we have the commitments now, and that the project is going to proceed and move forward. And to tell you the details, I'd like to introduce Dave Aiken from the Planning Office for Urban Affairs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Burke, members of the board, Secretary Polhemus. David Aiken, Senior Project Manager at the Planning Office for Urban Affairs, and I'm leading the technical aspects of bringing the project to fruition. Joined here by Donald Alexis, the President of Caribbean Integration Community Development, our partner in this, and Bill Grogan, our new President of the Planning Office for Urban Affairs. Cody Village remains a 76-unit development at the corner of Cummins Highway and Regis Road. The program remains the same as it's been all along since 2016. The building heights, the design, layouts, number of apartments and bedrooms, and amount of parking has not changed since the original approvals. As Ruth Silman indicated, we're simply carving up at this time to 2 applicants for purposes of financing, which was not contemplated at the time of the original approvals, and is necessary to enable us to close on our financing and start construction later this summer. We are excited that the project's able to move forward with 100% union construction, which has been a goal of the ownership from the very beginning. Let's see. Oh, hold on a sec. There we go. The site plan here that Lance placed into the presentation, you'll see that the left side of the site is what was carved up into one applicant, and the right side is the second applicant. The left side is 52 units, commercial space, community space, and the right side of the image there, the Regis Road parcel, is 24 units of all affordable housing, along with parking and outdoor amenity space. We're keenly aware of how important it is to bring the Cody Ford dealership property back online. The new MBTA Fairmount station is open, and the property is certainly an eyesore. It's a very complicated city-owned property to work with, and a very old dealership, and we are excited that we can bring it back by breaking ground in the coming months. Again, it is great news that the construction market is so strong in Boston, and the firms and construction workers have been so busy, but this has meant it's taken longer for us to pull together the financing to get the project underway. So with that, we're certainly happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to hold off questions till after the public participation, but does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
It does, okay. So we'll start with the public comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this? Please step up and state your name right up to the podium. Anyone that would like to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
Chairman and other board members, my name is Charles Cofield. I am a proud member of the Carpenters Union for 33 years, and this is a historical job for us, with it being 100% union as well as 100% affordable. Mattapan is overjoyed to have 100% affordable right beside commuter rail, almost unheard of. We should use this as a model for other contractors and developers to see that this can be done, and will keep some of the community groups happy by knowing that we can do more affordable units other than the 13% that everybody else is doing. This is a model for the city to see and to follow. We stand in favor of this project with the Carpenters Union. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Got to lower the mic, he's tall. Craig Ransom, I'm also a member of the Carpenters Union, 34 years. This is a model housing, as Charlie had said. We don't find affordable units like this in the city of Boston at all. I mean, Boston's become very expensive. I live in Dorchester, and I see the rents around me, that how expensive they are to actually live there in these neighborhoods. The prices are going up and up and up. So this just makes sense, real practical sense for people who want to maintain residency inside of Mattapan, Dorchester, Roxbury neighborhood. So I stand here also as a representative of the wood frame local, who will participate in this program with members of that local that are very diverse in the community. So we had two things to this project. We had members and diversity, and that's ideal when it comes to building a project of this magnitude. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Members of the board, I am James Wilson. I'm concerned about this project because I am in the middle of this project. The
Okay, are you gonna speak in, we're gonna hold off for people that are in opposition. So right now, we're taking comments from people that are in favor of this.
Okay.
So just sit tight, we'll get to you, but I wanna just do this in order so that everyone has a fair chance. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this? Go right up, oh, please, step right up. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Barbara Fields, and I reside at 43 Woodhaven Street. I am the co-chair of the Woodhaven Culbert Regis Neighborhood Association. We have been engaged in the process around this development since its inception several years ago. We have presented a letter of support for the project. I am one of the co-chairs, the other is sitting there. And we have spent a lot of time working with the developers and being a part of the process because that property has been an eyesore in our community for a long, long time. And so we are anxious to see this move forward. We think it betters our community. There is a support, and we just hope that this will be approved this evening so we can move forward. It's been in the works for a long, long time, and I think it's time for us to realize that property being developed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Elmer Boyd, local 723 members of the Carpenters, Wood Framers. I'm a Boston resident of Dorchester, Mattapan, Roxbury. I'm in favor of the project because this is going to open doors for our future, our kids as the future. This is a start. Like the gentleman said, this is something unheard of. I live in affordable housing, so this is very important. But not only that, it gives to our future of our upcoming kids. So this is an opportunity for them, not only for us, but also for the city to show their support.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. My name is Carlos de Souza. I'm also a union carpenter for 12 years. I came into this country in '99. So as a Brazilian, and I see this project coming forward to be 100% affordable, it's unheard like you heard before about this. I think it's very, very amazing that they can done this and be 100% affordable. If you see around the city, a lot of the other companies try to do 13%, and even that, they're not using 100% legit contractors. So I think that's amazing that's going on for this project. So that's why I'm 100% for.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay, is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Please step right up if you'd like to speak in opposition.
Members of the board, I am James Wilson. I'm concerned about the project because I'm in the midst. My concern is about the rodents, etc. Because I'm on Regis Road. One of the projects is right in front, and there's another project to the rear.
Okay. Are there any particular concerns that you want to bring to our attention?
The contaminations.
Did you have an opportunity at any of the community meetings for them to address your issues? Raise them?
No, I got a letter, a certified letter. It came to my house on July 3rd. I picked it up the Friday, July, I think the 5th or the 6th. And an attorney had sent me the notification about the project, etc.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so are there any other particular concerns that you have that would be opposed to this?
That's about it right now.
That's about it right now, okay. So, okay, well, maybe that's something that can still be addressed during the process if this does move forward. Okay, so we'll look into that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, all right, well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, and are there any comments or questions from the board? Would you like a minute for rebuttal to add anything?
Okay, my name is Donald Alexis. I'm the president of the Caribbean Integration Community Development. Just to address Mr. Wilson's concern, I spoke to him 2 days ago, and we scheduled to meet on Monday at his Dorchester's office just to address the construction concern that he has. So,
okay, and you'll monitor that during any future work. You'll be monitoring that as you move forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay. So if there's no, did you want to say something? No. Okay. If there's no further questions from the board and there's no further comments, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to, thanks for coming. Thanks.
Gary? Gary's on vacation. Mine is here, but it's a different one. So this is the wood stick, guys. So, what's the wood stick? Wood frame. They have a frame, wood frame. Yeah. That's all these guys do.
Okay. So we're going to go on to item number 23. Let me read this statement. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code regarding the First Amendment to the amended and restated development plan for Planned Development Area Number 77 at 6 through 26 New Street, East Boston, in connection with the 6 through 26 New Street project in East Boston. This hearing was duly advertised on June 28, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Raul?
Good afternoon, Chairman Burke, Director Golden, Madam Secretary, members of the board. By way of background, the 6-26 New Street project in East Boston was last approved by this board on April 16, 2015. The project as last approved consisted of a 242,615 square foot mixed-use development with 259 residential units, 155 off-street parking spaces, 4,900 square feet of retail space, and approximately 42,000 square feet of new public open space. Additionally, the project, which is now known as the Eddy, falls within PDA number 77, which was last amended and approved by this board in September 2014. Fast forward to today, and the reason why we are here before you now, on May 17, 2019, the proponent submitted a notice of project change and the First Amendment to the amended and restated development plan for PDA number 77 to allow for some modest changes to the approved project, specifically which include the addition of an approximately 1,893 square foot canopy addition to the Real House restaurant, which occupies the retail space, the relocation of a designated port area access route, some landscaping modifications, and additional docks to the existing water transportation docks along the project site. With respect to the Article 80 review process, the proponent formally began their public review process when they filed the MPC and PDA amendment on May 17, 2019. This triggered a 45-day public comment period, which was extended to allow for additional public participation and commentary. During that time frame, BPDA staff also held a public meeting at the Maverick Landing Community Room, which is located a short walking distance from the project site, to discuss the proposed changes with members of the community and local elected officials. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to Richard Java from 4 Point Associates, who will provide you with a very brief presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Raul.
Thank you, Raul, members of the board, and Chairman, for hearing this project this evening. The project is located at 10 New Street at the intersection of Sumner and New Street in East Boston. There are 4 main components to this project, and they involve the additional 1,800 square foot canopy. And I'll just go over to they involve the 1,800 square foot canopy, a additional square footage of approximately 1,500 square feet to the existing water taxi dock, a change in the landscaping from pavers to, from lawn to pavers, and a relocation of the designated port area access route. So as shown here, this is the new canopy that will be a seasonal canopy encased in glass with movable glass panels. Oops, go back. Shown on the left is the existing structure, just a small canopy and a paved area, and it's a restaurant seating area currently. As proposed, it will retain the restaurant seating, but it will have this 3-sided canopy added onto the existing structure. The landscape improvements involve conversion of the lawn area to pavers, as well as a small area that we fenced in for dogs, for people to bring their dogs. The improvements to the existing water taxi dock will allow additional berthing for up to 9 vessels in front of the site. It's currently used as a water taxi dock. So there'll be additional public benefits to this as a result of this project. There'll be commercial access for the public, as well as public boating access to the site. There's additional protection of maritime uses through additional berthing, as well as retention of the DPA access route. And lastly, there's financial improvements to the project.
Okay. Great, that concludes your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a public hearing, but do you have a question you want to
Just one more
ask right
question.
now? Okay.
How many additional people they expect to move with the improvements to the docks?
How many, I'm sorry, additional people? It will hold up to 9 additional vessels.
Yeah, how many people a day, do you think?
This is Charlie Lana.
My name's Charlie Liner. I'm the president of Navy Yard Hospitality Group. Are you asking how many more people with our transient boat will we be moving back and forth?
Yeah, for commuting.
For our the boat that we now offer is a complimentary water shuttle between East Boston and Charlestown, and right now it's transporting on average about 40,000 people a season between the 2 locations.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so we're going to open this up for the public comment period. And is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this? Please step up if you'd like to speak in favor of this proposal.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mike Perez, representing the Carpenters Union. On appreciation to Mr. Kelly Sato from Garden Alden, Carpenters Union want to go in favor of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board?
I just had a quick question. On the dock expansion, is that going to be exclusive to, Is it exclusive to, like?
The transient boat docks
Yeah.
are public docks, and anybody can pull up, and they're transient docks, so anyone can use them. There's no overnight slips, so we don't rent it monthly or seasonally. It's transient for the public and anyone that would like to come up.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no further questions, and a motion's in order?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Item number 24. I'm still going to read this. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code, to consider the 1241 Boylston Street project in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston as a development impact project. This hearing was duly advertised on June 27, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommends that this item be tabled to a future date.
Okay, so we'll take a vote then on, the motion will be to table this public hearing for the 1241 Boylston Street project in Fenway as a development impact project and its associated votes until a date and time to be determined by the director. A motion's in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. It's tabled.
Thank you.
Item number 25. It's another hearing, so I'll read this statement. This is a public hearing before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, doing business as the Boston Planning and Development Agency, being held in conformance with Article 80 of the Boston Zoning Code, regarding the Fifth Amendment to the Boston University Charles River Campus Institutional Master Plan, and to consider the Boston University Data Sciences Center project in the Fenway neighborhood of Boston as a development impact project. This hearing was duly advertised on June 22nd, 2019 in the Boston Herald. In a BPDA hearing on a proposed petition by the agency, staff members will first present their case and are subject to questioning by members of the agency. Thereafter, others who wish to speak in favor of the proposed petition are afforded an opportunity to do so under the same rules of questioning. Following that, those who wish to speak in opposition may do so again under the same rules of questioning. Finally, the proponents are allowed for a period of 5 to 10 minutes for rebuttal if they so desire. In an effort to accommodate all who would like to speak about this proposal, each person will be given up to 2 minutes to comment. BPDA staff will indicate when 30 seconds remain. At that time, please conclude your remarks so that the hearing may continue and others may be heard. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Director Golden, Madam Secretary. The proposed project is located on the corner of Commonwealth Avenue and Granby Street on the site of a surface parking lot on Boston University's Charles River campus. Boston University proposes a new data sciences center on the site, incorporating its mathematics and statistics department, as well as the Hariri Institute for Computing and Computational Science and Engineering. The proposed project is approximately 350,000 square feet and approximately 19 stories tall, with no parking proposed. The fifth IMP amendment increases the allowable building height and project site area and eliminates 300 proposed underground parking spaces for the previously approved proposed institutional project at Site CC identified in the IMP. The amendment also proposes up to 12 electronic screens to replace existing paper poster cases at the base of Warren Towers. BU filed an IMP notification form and project notification form on October 1st, 2018, and BPDA held a community meeting and a BU Community Task Force meeting before issuing a scoping determination on December 14,
14th, 2018. On April 30th, 2019, BU filed the 5th IMP amendment and a draft project impact report. BPDA held a community meeting and a BU community task force meeting at which the task force voted their unanimous support for the project. The proposed project was approved by the Boston Civic Design Commission on July 9th, 2019. In addition to community benefits previously committed to during the IMP approval process, the proposed project will provide significant streetscape and public realm improvements on Commonwealth Avenue and Granby Street, including improved pedestrian and bicycle accommodations. BPDA staff believes that the proposed project will be a positive addition to the neighborhood and is recommending approval of the proposed project and the 5th IMP amendment. I'll now ask Paul Rinaldi from Boston University to introduce himself and his team, give a brief presentation on the proposed project, and we'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Good evening. I'm Paul Rinaldi. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Campus Planning at Boston University. The statistics related to our project. And I'm very excited to be able to present to you tonight the Data Sciences Center at Boston University. Site CC and KK. CC is the Data Sciences Building. Both are located in the core, the academic core of the campus. CC has been a project site for us since the very first institutional master plan back in '86, with the opportunity to build a significant academic building on that site. KK is at Warren Towers, the monstrosity of dormitories right across the street. And you can see this from this aerial, not only how it is in the center of the academic core, but the surface parking lot. The institutional master plan amendment is going to address a number of different things. Really, the first is the increase in site by about 5,700 square feet. During design review with the staff, we all agreed that the public realm would be improved if we slid the building towards the north, creating a wider Commonwealth Avenue experience. Because of a very aggressive and successful transportation demand management plan, we simply don't need the parking spaces that we once thought we would need to develop through the years. So parking is eliminated here. Also, through the design of this building, developing from an institutional master plan notion, the building's mass has been reconfigured. So the added height in terms of both floors and feet, we believe benefits the opportunities for development on this site. And lastly, at the bottom, really what we're talking about is a change in technology, going from the age-old poster boards that line so many places to the technology of digital screens. The content's the same, the purpose is the same, to communicate the activities of the campus to members of the campus community. The project goal is to develop a hub for data sciences. Right now, the departments are scattered across the campus in about 5 or 6 different locations. So bringing them under one roof really supports the collaboration that's needed in these disciplines. This is the largest development of classroom space that we've done in the last 25 years, and it really is an opportunity for us to design those types of classrooms that the pedagogy need to have today. It's also a great opportunity to create something very exciting both for the campus and skyline of Boston. But most exciting is how this building will become a leader in sustainable design for the city. It will be the largest carbon-free building in Boston, and it's doing so not only with a very efficient envelope and mechanical and electrical systems, but it will do so with the use of the sustainables of geothermal, of solar, and off-site, off-campus wind. The early slide, and you have it in your binder, the economic impacts. Just to add to that, today the grant activity in these departments is about $10 million. And with the development of this building, we certainly expect that to grow because of the added opportunities available. And I'm going to turn it over to Paolo Rocha, principal from KPMB, our architects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll try and be brief. I know this has been a long night for you all. As Paul mentioned, the Data Science Center is located at the corner of Granby and Commonwealth Avenue. It sits at the heart of the campus, and it bridges the historic district to the east and the rest of the campus to the west. Just some quick existing site conditions of the surface parking and the alley, which we are revitalizing. The building was conceived as a vertical campus. We've stacked neighborhoods of 2- and 3-story volumes that shift to create opportunities for open collaboration spaces on all sides of the building. The building skin is tied directly to the energy model and the sustainable aspects of the project. To the right is the diagonal louvers, which cut out solar gain, but have clear glazing in behind that drive light deep into the floor plate. While on the right is the shallower, the facades on the shallower footprint, which cut down 60% of the solar gain and also allow for light penetration to half the bay. A view of Commonwealth Avenue in elevation looking straight on. At dusk, just showing the porosity of the building. We've really spent a lot of time looking at this building in the round and changing the paradigm of the buildings on campus to be an extroverted building, a building that shows the program out to the city and the street. A view of the building in context to the campus and the city in the background, taken from Essex. And the ground plane. We've really looked at this building in the round, a building at 360 degrees. So we've spent a lot of time on the public realm, moving the building north and east to create bigger public realm on Commonwealth Avenue and Granby, but also a focus on the alley, converting the alley into a pedestrianized laneway that services the backs of the Bay State Road brownstones. We've re-envisioned the parquet that's at the corner of Bay State and Granby, creating a re-envisioned grove that has opportunities for gathering and sitting. In the back lane behind the building is a courtyard. Again, it could have a dual function, potentially an outdoor classroom opportunity. And we've also established a passageway between Sargent and our building to create a mid-block connection to the laneway to allow for a lot more movement around through the building. A view from the corner of Granby and Commonwealth Avenue looking to the front entrance, looking northeast. A view looking north on Commonwealth Avenue of the front entrance. And here you can see the glazed portion of the ground floor is structurally glazed, no mullions. And the idea is that we're trying to blur the line between inside and outside as much as possible, so that Granby Plaza stretches from Granby all the way to the core that you see on the right side. So you really feel that interior and exterior space. This is a view from the east entrance looking west to Granby from the passageway area. And again, you can see how the building being shifted 11 feet north of the property line just creates a bigger public realm experience. This is an image of the laneway looking east, or looking west, sorry, to the Arts and Science building in the background at Granby, just showing how we're revitalizing the laneway. So there's a vehicular lane, and then on the right, adjacent to the row of trees is a pedestrian walkway with access to the backs of the Bay State Road houses. On the right, up the stairs, is the back courtyard. And a view from Cambridge at the BU Bridge. Paul?
Thank you. And just a couple of shots about the signs. So right across the street, Warren Towers, the locations for the signs. The above is the existing, the lower is the proposed digital. Same size, same location, same message and content. It's technology. And it's about 4.5 feet wide or across the top and about 6 feet tall. Again, filling that space that is the paper slides today. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I have a question while you're still up there. What were you talking about parking? This is going to eliminate a lot of parking spaces, right?
Yes, we are. So there are 126 parking spaces on site.
Right.
In the alley, I think there's another 35. and there's another 25 or so on Commonwealth, on Granby. The surface parking lot is a commercial lot for the university for visitors. Behind the row houses is faculty staff. And we just, our analysis proved our assumption that we simply don't need the parking capacity that we have today, and certainly did not need to add another 300 or another 275, 175.
What changed, though? Why did that happen?
So the transportation demand management plan that we have, we've done a much better job with providing shuttle service with our campus shuttles. We also provide a discount and subsidy program for MBTA use. I think those are the two big highlights.
Okay,
I mean,
because it's not often that we're hearing that you eliminated parking because you don't need it.
Right.
And so I'm going to commend you for taking these steps and having a different plan of action to do that, so.
Thank you. One of the things we're certainly seeing are more bike use. So we've added bikes here, and we've got a very aggressive plan to build bike storage across the campus, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So this is a public hearing, and unless there's a pressing question, we'll wait till after the public hearing. I asked a question because you were right there, so it was easy. And I'm the chairman, so.
Why not?
So anyone that would like to speak in favor of this proposal, please step right up if you'd like to speak in favor of this proposal.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board, Minor Perez with the Carpenters Union. We'd like to go in strong support on behalf of all our members that live and work throughout the city of Boston. Our members have joined many work opportunities at BU, and I will look forward to this project. Thank you.
Great, okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the board, and Director Golden. My name is Pamela Beal, and I reside at 462 Beacon Street. I'm here today in my capacity as chair of the Boston University Community Task Force and as a longtime business person in Kenmore Square. I'm here to support this project. I'm excited about the innovative design and for the improvements this project will bring to that section of Commonwealth Avenue and Kenmore Square. This building will transform a surface parking lot into a vibrant space with an enhanced public realm, making it much more engaging for pedestrians, students, and community members. Since the initial filing for the Data Science Center last fall, there have been 2 public meetings and 3 task force meetings, the most recent being the 6th of June, where the members unanimously voted to support this project, along with the 5th Amendment to the Boston University Master Plan. Accordingly, it is the task force hope that the BPDA will vote today in favor of this project. In closing, I want to thank Tim for all his work throughout the process, and thank each of you, yes, members of the board, for your time today.
I thought when
Thank
you said
you.
Tim, I thought you were talking about me.
And you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Chris Strang, and I'm a longtime resident of Kenmore Square. I'm also a member of the BU Community Task Force. I'm here to speak in strong support of the proposed new building, and specifically to praise BU for prioritizing sustainability as they construct a unique and precedent-setting building in our community. The investments in sustainable technologies will allow the Data Sciences Center to use geothermal heating and cooling for the building. I appreciate the innovative design and that the university wants to make a state-of-the-art building in my neighborhood. I believe it will be a wonderful addition to Commonwealth Avenue and Kenmore Square. I hope that the BPDA board will vote in support of the project, and I look forward to working with you as the task force member going forward. And as a side note, I also approve of the new signage on the building across the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Anyone that would like to speak in favor? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, hearing none, are there any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Go right ahead, please.
Can you please describe the geothermal system of the building?
Simply, because I'm not an engineer. In the alley, under the parklet on Granby and Bay State Road, we're going to be installing 31 wells that go down 1,500 feet. BAC did that 2014, I think. The calculations are it's a tight site, so we have to go 1,500 feet deep to get the thermal transfer from the bedrock, actually, that we're in. So they will drill through the first, I think it's 500 feet, 200 feet of back bay fill and organics and general sands. Then they'll be in the bedrock. They insert a pipe called Rygan, and it is in that Rygan that a fluid goes down, transfers its heat, either because it's a day like today and it's very warm, or it's a day in February and it's very cool, and transfers to a more moderate temperature. And then when it comes back into the building's mechanical systems, in our case all electrically powered, bring the temperature to the level of what's being called for on each of the floors at each of the thermostats. Does that help?
So the Rygan moves through the building, or
No, the Rygan, I think of it as a straw, basically.
I see.
Although it's a closed loop system. So it's nothing but an open pipe,
So it's just moving
goes down
forward.
and comes up, and this fluid goes down, warm fluid goes down, transfers to a more moderate temperature, comes back up, and it's the cutting the curse, if you will, from the warm temperatures of today or the cold temperatures of February into something that the electrical system can manage from, I think it's 55 degrees is the nominal temperature down there? Yeah. So it's to take it from 55 to whatever the building's calling for at that moment. An office building like this is going to need more cooling than heating, except for those bad days.
Huh.
And then we have electric service to do the remainder. There's not even a gas pipe coming into the building to do cooking.
Wow, thank you.
That help? Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
I guess with that, is there any, I didn't really understand what that was before either. Is there any risk to doing that? Like any kind of, to going that far deep and like, I guess I don't know what the technical.
So it's
I mean, I don't know if has anything ever gone wrong, and what if it does? Like,
so
how
it's a
does that-
challenge to go that far down. I mean, what
Yeah,
we've learned through the process is the drillers in this area are very accustomed to drilling wells for water,
Yeah.
but not for oil as they are in Texas
Right.
or in Pennsylvania. The early systems, I think there's one in Cambridge on the Blackstone plant. They used to be an open loop, and there was some risk that the area would get too warm. But the closed loop technology has improved to the point where the closed loop really does not. There's never zero, but there's near zero risk to the environment. The calculation, the reason why we're at 31 in this area is, I mean, there's a whole calculation of how close you can be, how far you have to be, how much coverage. I'm looking at Dr. Landsmark because he's been there and did it pretty successfully, I think, right?
Yeah, we did this a number of years ago
Yeah.
at the Architectural College. It was a little bit of an inconvenience while the drilling was going on, to be sure, particularly for people who parked in the rear lot. But it worked out well. And
One of the other
it's
things.
used extensively elsewhere in the country.
One of the other things that we did, and we've started this, I want to say about 4 to 6 months ago, we weren't sure what kind of thermal transfer we would get from the site. So in our early submissions, we were kind of hedging our bets. We did 3 test wells, and we found that the transfer of temperature, the thermal transfer, was very successful. So we're moving ahead with it. Right now, they're drilling. It's exciting. It really is.
This is the site where the red falafel truck used to be?
Yes, and Burger King next to that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it's certainly going to be transformative of the
Yeah.
BU campus, away from the kind of neo-Georgian architecture that has dominated it for a while, and it will change, I think, the way people think of BU in terms of innovation.
Thank you.
We got a bunch of letters from people who thought it was an ugly building. I just want to acknowledge that. But we're not the group that comments on aesthetics. And apart from that, being innovative is something that the mayor has asked for a number of years. And so I commend you on the courage to move forward with this.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then a motion is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go back to, item number 20. Okay, item number 20, request authorization to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80A-6 of the zoning code, pursuant to the notice of project change, consisting of reducing the ceiling height, the addition of 2 floors, increase of 20 residential rental units, now at 446 rental units, and floor area ratio increases from 14.3 to 13.6, located at 252 to 264 Huntington Ave, to take all related actions. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. On December 14th, 2017, the board approved the 252 to 264 Huntington Avenue project, consisting of an approximately 405,500 square foot, 32-story mixed-use building at 252 to 258 Huntington Ave, with up to 426 residential units, 7,500 square feet of retail space, 14,000 square feet of cultural space, and 114 parking spaces in an underground garage. The approved project also entailed the renovation of the historic Huntington Avenue Theater and the gifting of that facility to the Huntington Theater Company. On June 4th, 2019, the proponent filed a notice of project change. The proponent has reduced the floor-to-ceiling heights of the project, yielding 2 additional residential floors. This represents an increase of 20 rental units from 426 to 446, an increase of approximately 24,710 square feet, and an increase in floor area ratio to 14.3. The added rental units would yield an additional 3 inclusionary development policy units for a total of 58 in the project. There is no change to the building envelope and no change to the height of the project. Jay Eigerman, representing QMG Huntington, the proponent, and I will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim. Are there any questions from the board?
What impact, if any, will this have on the theater?
No impact on the theater. The theater has been gifted to the Huntington Theater Company. I understand they're in the middle of a fundraising campaign for renovations to the theater. So the tower project that is subject to the notice of project change was one Article 80 project, but this is only dealing with the tower project.
Okay, if there's no further questions or motions in order?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Tim. Item number 21, request authorization to adopt a minor modification to the Washington Park Renewal Plan to include residential and parking use on parcels H1A and H3, located at 125 Warren Street, and to issue a certification of approval pursuant to Article 80, Section 80E6 of the Small Project Review of the Zoning Code for the construction of 28 residential rental units and 28 parking spaces, and to enter into a land disposition agreement for parcels H1A and H3 in the private parcel that comprises the site, which will supersede the original land disposition agreement for parcel H3 and to take all related actions. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary. The proposed project is located on the corner of Warren Street and St. James Street, outside of Dudley Square in the Roxbury neighborhood. The site of the proposed project is currently a vacant lot of approximately 15,011 square feet. The proposed project is a 3 to 4 story, approximately 38-foot tall residential building, totaling approximately 29,870 square feet. The project will include 28 residential units and 28 parking spaces in an at-grade garage. The proponent filed a small project review application on August 3rd, 2018. BPDA hosted a public meeting on August 22nd. The strongest feedback from the community at that meeting was the desire to see a zoning compliant project. As a result, the proponent scaled back the original 41-unit, 48-foot tall proposal to the one being considered tonight. A second public meeting was held on December 12th, 2018. In addition to responding to the community's desire for a zoning compliant building, the proponent has also agreed to make a $40,000 contribution to neighborhood improvements. A community meeting will be held to determine the best outcome of those funds in the near future. The project site includes 2 urban renewal parcels in the Washington Park urban renewal area. The construction of the proposed project requires changes to the land use and dimensional provisions in the original land disposition agreements for those parcels. A minor modification is proposed, and an incremental value price of $200,000 has been established to account for the increase in value for the 2 urban renewal parcels as a result of the land use and dimensional modifications. BPDA staff believes that the proposed project will be a positive addition to the neighborhood and is recommending approval of the proposed project and the minor modification of the urban renewal plan for the Washington Park urban renewal area. George Moranci, representing the development team, will give a brief presentation and will be available to answer any questions afterwards.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Secretary, board members, Director Golden. My name is George Moranci. I represent the developer, and my client is also now the owner of the property. My client is Joseph Federico. He and his family own FedCorp. FedCorp is a locally based integrated underground utility installation, site preparation, and roadway construction firm that primarily does business with public agencies and municipalities. That includes the City of Boston and Boston Water and Sewer Commission. They have an equipment yard and offices on Norfolk Avenue. My client is very familiar with the site because of the great amount of work that he's done in the Roxbury neighborhood. As I said, my client has actually purchased the property. It was previously owned by the Church of God in Christ, which has owned it for a number of decades as the site has lain undeveloped. Looking at the street view slides here, we can see that it's currently a vacant site. As Tim said, it's approximately 15,000 square feet. There's a partial foundation which is located on the site. That is owing to an uncompleted effort by the previous owner to erect a new church building. The restriction under the LDA, which Tim referenced, does in fact restrict the site to development for a church or a church building. The foundation was laid some number of years ago. Nothing ever became of it after that. Moving on, we have additional views of the site from both Regent Street, St. James Street, showing that it is undeveloped and not particularly attractive. This is a proposed site plan, so it's a very unusually shaped site. The building would be set back. The building shown on that slide, obviously in white, with surrounding landscaping. The building would be set back on all lot lines to conform with complete streets requirements and also to enhance the pedestrian environment on all sides along Warren Street, which is at the lower portion of the slide. The building would be set back 3 feet from its own lot line, which itself is set back behind 6 feet of sidewalk paving, which itself is behind a further 4-foot street furnishing and planting zone. Along St. James, which is St. James to the left and then Regent going up, the building would be set back 5 feet from the lot line where a planting bed would be installed. On the ground floor, the triangular area that projects up, the rear of the building is set back 64 feet from the farthest point of the rear lot line. That area would become a substantial landscaped open space area for use by building residents. The ground floor, as depicted here, would consist of garage parking for 28 vehicles for the 28 units. Entrance to and egress from the garage is located on the Warren Street side of the site. The ground floor Will also contain a bicycle storage room, trash and recycling room, and the building's main residential entry and elevator lobby, also on the Warren Street side. Elevation, this is looking at the building from Warren Street, where you can see the four-story presentation along the Warren Street side because of the grade of the site, with the garage door entrance visible on the right side. The site is a warped plane. As you move up St. James and Regent, the building's physical height doesn't change, but the perceived height changes as you go up Regent at St. James, so that it essentially replicates the existing 2.5 to 3 story residential building height along those streets. The building's tallest point, as I said, is along Warren Street. And that's the last slide. As Tim said, it's a zoning compliant project. We're not seeking zoning relief. It's a very prominent site in Dudley Square that's lain fallow for decades. And my client is certainly excited, and I think the neighborhood is likewise excited to see something that is zoning compliant happening there, that's going to take advantage of this prime location in a way that's going to be good for the community.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the board?
We received a letter from the Mayor's Commission for Persons with Disabilities making certain recommendations about handicapped accessibility of these units. How have you addressed those?
Mr. Landsmark, all I can say is that we will not be seeking relief from the Architectural Access Board. Obviously, what the architect has produced to date are schematic design drawings. We will ensure that the building is fully accessible and that there are accessible units. So I can state on the record that there will be no application for relief from the AAB.
Okay, so that's an ongoing process.
Yes. Again, zoning schematic drawings, I was not aware of that, quite frankly, but this is new construction. There is no way that we would get relief from the AAB on accessibility issues, nor would we expect to or want to. I will follow.
You should check back with them. Their letter is dated August 30 of this past year.
I'm sorry, and to whom is that addressed to?
Good question. I'll be happy to show it to you.
Okay,
after.
I was not aware of it, is my point, but certainly we'll follow up on that. And again, the expectation is that this will be a compliant building with respect to accessibility.
Fine.
Okay, if there's no further questions.
I have a question. We received a lot of comment letters opposing this project in 2018, and it seems that the comment period was extended. Maybe Tim can talk about what changes have been made to the project since that time, because now here we are almost a year later.
Right. I will turn it over to Tim, Ms. Downs, but I will say that the changes that were made were wholesale changes, to get this to where it's a zoning compliant project. So there was a reduction in unit count. There was an increase in the ratio of units to parking. There was the FAR, there's been a reduction in FAR. We're now at 1.99 on FAR. The maximum FAR is 2, so we're right there. We're about 17 feet, I think, under the maximum height, so we're actually much lower. The concerns with the community, and this was a fairly long process, were centered on density and the height of the building. Even though we were always at zoning height, people felt it was too big for this particular location, particularly with the residences on St. James, on the St. James Regent Street side. So the changes that were made brought this down to zoning compliance in a 1-to-1 parking ratio. I think those were the largest issues. Tim, you may want to add.
I think George basically summed it up. I think, we had the first public meeting on August 22nd. I think we received a lot of letters that I'm sure you read. Probably fewer letters after our second public meeting on December 12th, but in that intervening period, we haven't showed you the original design, which was a sort of more, I would say, standard-looking 4 to 5 story multifamily building, which people felt was out of character with the neighborhood. And so not just the density and the height reduction to zoning compliance, but also, the change in sort of design. I mean, you saw the sort of the mansard style, building that was being proposed. I think people really appreciated that at our second public meeting, and I thought, really actually applauded the development team for getting into zoning compliance in I believe it's the Dudley Square Economic Development Area where multifamily is allowed. But I think, especially sort of making the transition around St. James Street to sort of a similar height to the existing houses on St. James is really important to folks. So I think, George did sum it up. They were very responsive to a lot of the critiques of the design and the density, and getting it to zoning compliance is really a really firm priority for the neighborhood.
And just finally, in addition to that, in addition to the $200,000 incremental value payment for the modification to the LDA, which Tim referenced, and that would have been the case whether or not this were zoning compliant. So there's the $200,000 incremental value payment to the BPDA. There is that $40,000 community contribution, which is over and above, even though it's a zoning compliant project.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 26. Request authorization to submit an application to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, MassWorks Infrastructure Program, in support of various projects in the city of Boston, and to enter into a grant agreement with the respective proponents of said projects for said funds, and to take all related actions. Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Paul Himos, and Director Golden. The MassWorks Infrastructure Program is one which is administered by the Commonwealth's Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. It is a program which we at the BPDA have used successfully over the last several fiscal years to support projects which are under the priorities for the Commonwealth, particularly around the creation of affordable housing and job development, which is a new priority that MassWorks has been used for. Projects for which we have used this particular grant source in the past include Jackson Square in Jamaica Plain, Olmsted Green in Mattapan, the Tropical Foods development in Roxbury, and the South Bay Expansion project in Dorchester. The process by which we vet proposed applications includes not only the Boston Planning and Development Agency, but also our sister agencies, the Department of Neighborhood Development and the Office of Economic Development in particular, as well as the Mayor's Office of Intergovernmental Relations. The funding round application process begins July 19th and goes through August 9th, and with your approval, we will submit applications as indicated, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions about the program or projects if you'd like.
Are the projects we submit generally funded?
Yes, one of the priorities for these projects that are considered for MassWorks likes to be, to maybe put in the vernacular, the last funding source in.
Okay. Yeah.
Under many circumstances, these projects, particularly housing projects, are also receiving funding from the Department of Housing and Community Development, Department of Neighborhood Development as well. And so MassWorks funds are used primarily, and I should have mentioned this earlier, are used to fund things that are not necessarily exciting, but very important to projects like infrastructure,
Yeah.
like foundations, like environmental and remediation.
Great, thank you, Dana.
Sure.
Okay, if there's no further questions, and a motion's in order.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you,
Thanks
Dana.
very much.
Thank you.
Item number 27, personnel. Ms. Feeney?
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Madam Secretary, and Director Golden. Just a few items for your consideration on the BRA agenda tonight. We have one departure with details listed in the board memo, and that was David Carlson, Deputy Director of Urban Design. We have one status change for your consideration with details listed in the board memo, and that would be Michael Canizo, Senior Architect and Urban Designer for Urban Design, to be temporarily appointed to Interim Deputy Director of Urban Design. And then finally, we have 9 promotions, market and equity adjustments as part of the 2019 performance evaluation period for your consideration with details listed in the board memo. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
No.
Hearing none, a
Oh,
motion.
I thought you asked if I had any questions. I'm like, no, not right now. No, no, sorry. No. Sorry. My apologies. I'm sorry.
Got it. I got
She's
it.
like, no. No.
Okay,
No, no.
it's getting late here.
So moved.
So motion's in order.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much for moving us right along. Contractual, we need a motion to pay the bills.
I move we pay our bills.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. And finally, the director's update.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Golden.
Chairman, and through you to the members, good evening. I want to point out a couple of internal important housekeeping matters that we engage in on a regular basis. Now, back in 2014, both myself and the mayor were committed to the notion that this organization should engage its employees more frequently and more thoroughly. So we begin to do something very basic. We did an annual evaluation. Pretty common in the outside world, both in government and in the private sector. It was kind of unheard of here. It was probably at least a few decades before such a thing. We actually can't go back far enough to figure out when employee evaluations were done, so we started doing them. And it's just a basic matter of good management. We want to make sure employees know what's expected of them, how they're doing, and point out where things are going great, point out where things need improvement. So that's good for the organization. It's good for the employees, too. The employees have an opportunity to respond, to develop. We've provided a lot more professional development opportunities, getting our employees, our staff outside the building, learning new and different things related to their jobs. But a fundamental piece of that is evaluating them. So they hear from us, we hear from them, we understand each other, we're able to do our jobs and accomplish the agency's mission for the people of Boston better. It's a really arduous undertaking. It takes a lot of time. I want to thank Siobhan and her team for their work in getting this really serious and important task done. Kevin Liu at the Human Resources Department has done a lot of the legwork associated with that. We really want to thank Kevin Lau for that effort, which means a lot to everybody, the 200-plus employees of the organization. As you just mentioned, we moved Michael Canizo into the interim deputy director for urban design position. David Carlson, after a long career at the agency, retired 2 weeks ago. Michael has been with us for 16 years as a senior architect and urban designer. He was with the city of Boston for several years before that. He is really well respected internally and externally. We welcome him and thank him for performing the function of interim deputy director for urban design. Michael will be in this role for the foreseeable future. We're going to begin a formal process to fill the deputy director's position very soon. And finally, in the early years of the Walsh administration, so much of the development underway was residential. We talked often about the building boom being more residential than anything else. In many years, it was a distinct majority. It might have been 80% some years of the new development was residential. That has changed with time, and we welcome that. Still a whole lot of residential development going on, but we're seeing other forms of development. Tonight, we've done, you in your actions here have approved 1.24 million square feet of new development. The vast majority of it is non-residential. It's spoken for mostly by the major rehabilitation effort at the World Trade Center, almost 700,000 square feet, and 350,000 square feet at the new Data Sciences Center at Boston University. So once again, an example of just how diverse the development is that is being permitted and the variety of development activity that's occurring in the city of Boston right now, again, it's a good thing. It's about residences, it's about jobs, it's about institutional space. That's good for everybody in Boston and the metropolitan region. So with those approvals tonight, that speaks to over 1,000 jobs for people in the building trades, building these projects. It means 2,200 direct jobs that are created in the wake of the construction. So that's 2,000 permanent and over 1,000 building trades positions. So more good news for the people of Boston. With that, have a great evening.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Brian. We need a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.
30.